Chapter 1139. Ancient Chaos. Have you ever entered the deepest level of the ancient chaos domain? You haven't. It's because you haven't that you don't know how strong ancient chaos is. The supreme heavenly Tao is divided into 10 directions, becoming incomplete heavenly Tao. It's like a complete boundless universe. What will happen after ancient chaos is unified? Why is it that the cultivators of ancient chaos are almost certain to die when they enter the great world of Xiandi? You're too young. Other than the old man and the old man, no one else knows the secrets from hundreds of millions of years ago. Who is the true identity of the Shao clan's patriarch? You don't know. I'll give you 30 minutes to think about it. If you're late, the Shao clan's patriarch's true body will bring a greater disaster to us and even the entire ancient chaos. If you don't agree, the old man can only attack you. Yi Lan's words struck the hearts of the 8 galaxy masters, causing them to be overwhelmed with shock. Yilan, Senior, can you make it clearer? The 8 controllers all looked at Yilan in shock as they asked. The Shao clan's patriarch is from the great world of Xiandi. Do you really think he's so easy to be imprisoned by me? I'm only imprisoning his life. His power is gone, and his mission has failed. His true body has escaped into the chaotic space, and is rushing to the galaxy tunnel in the 10 directions domain. If he returns to the great world of Xiandi, we'll have to face another hundreds of millions of years, or even be overturned. What? Take out the controller token and join forces with the old man to kill the Shao clan's patriarch. This is the only hope of our ancient chaos domain. The old man knows that you've reached an agreement to advance and retreat together. As the old man said just now, he can sign the agreement with you first. There's not much time left. Chi-chi. As Yi Lan spoke, a light flashed between his eyebrows, and the human controller token appeared in front of everyone. The 8 commanders clearly saw the life of the Shao clan's patriarch, who had just been restrained by Yi Lan, and a young face faintly appeared in the runes of the token. That young face was the Golden Dragon, who had risen to power in the Tyrants. He was also the commander who had stepped into the 10-direction domain. While he's still in ancient chaos, we'll use the controller ability of the 9-face token and the connection between his 2 lives and his true body. The old man is confident that he can imprison and summon his true body and kill him. Buzz. The human race ruler token suddenly flashed with crimson gold characters and floated in front of everyone. I'll sign it. Sign. Ancient chaos. What will it be like? I'm curious, I'll sign it. Buzz. Buzz 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 buzz. The 8 rulers as rulers as dominion, chaos domain. Yi Lan, ancient chaos. The ancient chaos Yi, SSS. What Yi Lan said was that it was impossible for them to not notice anything at their current location. It was just that the ancient chaos annihilation was simply too mysterious. No one was able to discover any clues. The only place that might have ancient secrets was the ancient chaos domain. However, before they had become controllers, they had gone there before. After becoming controllers, they were no longer willing to experience the terror of that place again. Secondly, the ruler's identity was the key to enter the ancient chaos domain. The only way to enter was to pass the ruler's token to others. In this case, the 8 galaxies were not like Yi Lan and Chen Wuliang, who could casually pass the ruler's token to others. Now, Yi Lan used the ruler's token to form a contract, which also proved his sincerity. They would not refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. In fact, before they came here, they had already expected such an outcome. However, they did not know Yi Lan's true strength at that time, so they were still hoping for a fluke. Divine Consciousness Link. Fuse with the token. But chi. Boom. When the contract was formed, the 9 tokens suddenly bloomed with bright light. 9, the extreme number. The 9 tokens represented the 9 major clans, which were the most basic 9 major clans of the ancient chaos domain. At this moment, after releasing a light and a mysterious aura that seemed to connect the 9 heavens and 10 earths, without the need for Yi Lan and the 8 controllers to control it, it circled and danced together on its own, forming a 9-star alignment. Buzz. The 9 tokens suddenly vibrated. Buzz. Rumble. It was also at this moment that the entire great thousand world of ancient chaos began to tremble. Will it work? Yi Lan stared at the 9 tokens that were gradually fusing and murmured, his eyes full of anticipation. Senior Yi Lan, you mean? Old man Xiao won't be able to escape if he doesn't die. If the 9 tokens fuse successfully, the 9 of us will activate our divine consciousness and summon him back through his 2 lives. Old man is talking about the Tyrant Tribe Ruler's token? The Tyrant Tribe Ruler's token? 9, the extreme number. Ancient Chaos Domain originally only had 9 major clans, but it was formed from 10 major galaxies. The Tyrant Tribe is a derivative of our 9 major clans. Our 9-sided token is the foundation, and the Tyrant Tribe token is the 10th derived token. Now, the Tyrant Tribe token has become an ownerless object. Perhaps, after the 9 tokens fuse, the Tyrant Tribe token can be summoned. It's here. Yi Lan, who was explaining to the 8 of them, suddenly shouted with a hint of excitement in his eyes. It's here? The 8 of them were puzzled and followed Yi Lan's gaze to the 9-sided tokens that were fusing. Chi. It was also at this moment that a pillar of light suddenly shot out from the center of the 9 tokens that were constantly moving closer to each other like a string of pearls. The beam of light contained endless changes in time and space. It directly connected heaven and earth and disappeared into the endless void. Immediately, a stream of light seemed to cut through the endless space barrier. It was so fast that even Yi Lan could not see it clearly. Almost instantly, an identical token that exuded an endless ancient aura appeared in the middle of the 9-sided tokens. What else could it be other than the Tyrant Tribe Ruler's token? Drip your blood essence and control it together. Yi Lan's old voice had a hint of excitement. Okay. Chi 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 buzz. Chi 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 chi. Rumble. Rumble. What happened? What's going on? At this moment, there was a terrifying upheaval on every planet in the 10 major galaxies. The Tao laws and the energy of heaven and earth that permeated between heaven and earth suddenly became turbulent and surging. At the same time, the divine temples of the 9 major galaxies all bloomed with dazzling immortal light and expanded infinitely. They rose into the void and immediately converged in the direction of the extraterritorial battlefield. Trace to the source, absorb. While the cultivators of the entire vast thousand domains of ancient chaos were in a state of chaos, staring in horror at the terrifying fluctuations that had appeared between heaven and earth, Yi Lan, who was speeding towards the extraterritorial battlefield with the holy temple of the Tyrant Tribe, suddenly activated his divine thoughts and let out a soft cry. Chapter 1140. Assimilate. Assimilate. The 8 controllers, whose minds were connected to Yi Lan's, shouted at the same time after Yi Lan. The auras of the 9 of them were at their peak. Ugh. Impossible, impossible. Yi Lan, don't even think about it, don't even think about it. Ugh. No matter how fast the Xiao clan's patriarch was, without the controller's token, he could not activate the space-time gates that the tyrants had all over the chaotic star territory. It was not something that he could condense in a short time. Flying in the chaotic space, he estimated that he would be able to escape into the 10-direction territory and enter the galaxy tunnel in 15 minutes at most. None of the guardians at the entrance of the 10-direction territory could block his attack. Yi Lan and the controllers of the 8 major galaxies were at the tyrant's divine temple. They could not activate the tyrant's space-time gates either. If they wanted to chase after him, they could only enter the chaotic space. However, they did not chase after him immediately. This made the Xiao clan's patriarch think that he had succeeded in deceiving them, but he did not expect a terrifying devouring power to suddenly come at this time. What made him even more frightened was that his soul origin seemed to be bound, and he could not even struggle. The power to control the vast thousand domains in the chaotic star territory, you say it's impossible. Yi Lan's voice suddenly rang in the Xiao clan's patriarch's ears. How is it possible? The tyrant's token. 9 summons 1. It's simpler than the 2 summons 7. Old man, it's been billions of years, it's time to end it. Yi Lan ha? Do you really think that you can break your imprisonment after killing me? 100,000 years. Oh no, there should be 50,000 years left. My master will investigate my situation. If I die, there will be a stronger existence coming. You will die even faster. It's indeed his people. Yi Lan's expression suddenly became a little ferocious as he said sternly. You actually know? Unfortunately, it's too late. You want to kill me with your own hands? Don't even think about it. Boom, boom, boom. The Shao clan's patriarch suddenly let out a crazy cry. Starting from the soul origin imprint, his entire body started to burn. However, under the envelopment of the controller's power that had fused with the 10 tokens, he couldn't cause any waves. However, his physical body and soul exploded under the confinement of the controller's power and were annihilated into ashes. Boom. Yi Lan bit his lips to the point of bleeding. He forcefully endured the overflowing hatred and closed his eyes. The moment he closed his eyes, the 2 lives of the Shao clan's patriarch that were imprisoned in the controller's token were directly turned into meat paste, their bodies and souls destroyed. The Shao clan's patriarch was dead. Yi Lan's mortal enemy, who had been holding back Yi Lan for hundreds of millions of years, was finally killed today. The heaven and earth anomaly in the ancient chaos Great Thousand World lasted for 100 years before it gradually weakened. Every cultivator could clearly feel that the world had changed. The heaven and earth spirit chi and heavenly Tao laws in every corner of the 10 galaxies were 10 times or even 100 times stronger than before. At the same time, just like when the overlord of the tyrants had fallen, the vast and boundless vast thousand domains in the ancient chaos universe experienced a complete change. The barrier between the extraterritorial battlefield and the barrier between the 10 galaxies also disappeared. There was no longer an obvious boundary. However, the most shocking change came from the 10 directions domain. The entrances of the 10 galaxies in the 10 directions domain were actually combined like 10 tokens, and the Hongmeng Qi and Heavenly Tao laws in the 10 directions domain were strengthened by dozens of times. However, all the Hongmeng Supremes who went to investigate the situation discovered that after the entrance to the 10 directions domain, the galaxy tunnel leading to the great world of Xiandi had been completely sealed. The cultivators who entered could only see the entrance to the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. During this 100 years, the tyrant's cultivators fearfully elected a Tao-severing perfected immortal with the strongest cultivation and a relatively good relationship with the higher-ups of the tyrants. He became the overlord of the tyrant's chaotic galaxy and one of the top 10 members of the Supreme Council of the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. It was also at this time that the overlords of the 10 galaxies issued several orders that shook the entire ancient chaos Great Thousand World. The most sensational one was the ownership of the head of the council. By now, all the cultivators in the human galaxies already knew that the ancient chaos Great Thousand World was unified, and the highest ruling body was the ancient chaos Supreme Council. The 10 members were the overlords of the 10 galaxies. However, the ownership of the president was still not announced. Everyone guessed that it would definitely fall into the hands of the strongest overlord of the human race, Yi Lan. After all, Yi Lan had single-handedly facilitated this unification with his terrifying strength that was close to that of a perfected immortal king. Only Yi Lan could intimidate the overlords of the other 9 galaxies. However, to everyone's surprise, the announced president of the council, or to be exact, the overlord of the ancient chaos Great Thousand World, was actually Killing God Shenhao. Killing God Shenhao's name had been like the sun in the sky in the entire ancient chaos Great Thousand World ever since the battle in the extraterritorial battlefield. The Daoyuo Golden Wonderland had the terrifying strength of a Tao-severing perfected immortal, and it was not as simple as an ordinary Tao-severing perfected immortal. Anyone could be sure that once Killing God Shenhao stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, he would most likely be in existence comparable to the overlords of the 10 galaxies. However, that was only after Chen Hao stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Now, the overlords of the 10 galaxies had actually publicly announced that Killing God Chen Hao would be the president of the council. This was more or less beyond everyone's expectations. This news caused the entire ancient chaos Great Thousand World to boil, but no one dared to voice out their doubts because this was a joint decision made by the overlords of the 10 galaxies. As for the cultivators of the vast universe-proud Heaven Association, especially Chen Hao's brothers and sisters, they were in a state of ecstasy. There was also another piece of news that made the young great overarching golden immortals and primordial chaos supremes of the 10 major galaxies in the ancient chaos world excited. The rulers of the 10 major galaxies would join forces to establish the ancient chaos college. The god of slaughter, Chen Hao, would be the honorary principal, Yi Lan and the other rulers of the 10 major galaxies would be the vice principals, and the top Dao severing true immortals of the 10 major galaxies would be the main lecturers. They would recruit the young geniuses of the entire ancient chaos great thousand world. Another news was that the 10 galaxies would share their resources, and various cultivation holy lands, forbidden lands, and secret realms would be open to the entire ancient chaos great thousand world. Rumble! Rumble! In the ancient chaos great thousand world, the huge palace shook violently. Chen Hao sat cross-legged alone, completely unaffected by the tremors. Endless immortal light flashed, and thousands of Dao laws tumbled. The aura of his bloodline, true yuan, soul power, and will were all extremely powerful. 100 years. By now he, proud heaven, Si Xian, and the 9 perfected immortals had already stepped into the ancient chaos great thousand world for 100 years. Except for Chen Hao's original body, everyone else, alone or in groups, had already gone a certain distance. Ignoring the 9 perfected immortals and Si Xian's group, Chen Hao had always been a little deeper than proud heaven's group. Chapter 1141. He was like a nanny. No matter who it was, once there was a real danger to their life, he would be the first to arrive. If someone couldn't keep up with the group, he would give them special treatment. Occasionally, when he was free, Chen Hao would immerse himself in his own enlightenment. Even so, Chen Hao's progress was astonishing. He was advancing step by step on his own path. This was the situation when the 2nd to 6th Animus were still immersed in their own experiences. Hiss, hiss, it's about to stop? The entire ancient chaos domain shook for 100 years before gradually calming down. Finally, when the palace Chen Hao condensed completely stopped shaking, Chen Hao slowly opened his eyes and murmured. The shaking of heaven and earth has affected the ancient chaos domain for 100 years. What happened in the outside world? It really makes one curious. Chen Hao murmured. The ancient chaos domain was completely isolated from the outside world. Unless Yi Lan activated the controller's token to summon them back, Chen Hao and the others couldn't go out even if they wanted to. It could be said that this was the heaven and earth prison where the controller of the 10 major galaxies of the ancient chaos domain imprisoned the most heinous criminals. It was more terrifying than death. However, the shaking of heaven and earth had actually lasted for 100 years, which shocked Chen Hao and the others. Chen Hao had also discussed it with Si Xian, the 9 true immortals, and the others, but the conclusion they reached was that something major had happened in the entire ancient chaos great thousand world. As for what exactly had happened, it was not something they could guess. However, since Yi Lan didn't summon them out in advance, it shouldn't be a disaster. Chen Hao, hiss! The little nurse, Lu Hui, suddenly came out from between Chen Hao's eyebrows and sat directly on Chen Hao's lap. She wrapped her arms around Chen Hao's neck. Again! Chen Hao frowned when he saw the little girl. That's not it. Can't you comfort my elder sister? She has a knot in her heart. When cultivating, she's always distracted, so her progress is very slow. Who's to blame? Isn't it because you forced me to do it? How good would it be if you let me cultivate in the 2nd anima? You just had to. Now you reap what you sow. She is already your woman. How can you say that? I'm angry. Nurse Lu Hui pouted. Unfortunately, Chen Hao closed his eyes. I'm really angry. Chen Hao remained unmoved. I was wrong. Brother Hao, Xiong, it's already like this. Please help my sister. Don't blame me for being so stubborn. It's because you don't care about the other special nurses. Although they're all you treat them differently. I don't want my sister to be wronged. I've always had a good relationship with her since we were young. You men don't covet your sisters-in-law. She already gave my sister to you. You can't just pick up your pants and ignore her. Pooh. Chen Hao was finally amused by Nurse Lu Hui's words. He flicked her forehead and said, "What kind of thoughts do you have in your head? Am I that kind of wretched man? Fine, I'll immerse myself in the second anima and give it a try. I'll be honest with you, my main body really is, temporarily at most, lusting after her. I told you before that I can't do this and that I'll talk about it after I fuse with her. But you just had to. Now, I'll give it a try. I don't know if it'll work or not. Okay. If you can untie the knot in my sister's heart, how about it?" Chen Hao stared at the nurse who was becoming more and more intelligent. His eyes were evil and filled with expectation. "How about this?" The nurse's face turned red. After saying that, she suddenly opened her cherry mouth and bit down on Chen Hao's shoulder. "Ah!" Chen Hao cried out in surprise. Soon after, his eyes widened. "Bite me? Really? It'll work if you do it." This. Nurse Lu Hui turned into a ray of light and entered Chen Hao's mind. After entering, she patted her chest and couldn't calm down for a long time. However, when she thought of Chen Hao's excited look, her eyes revealed a proud expression. What a little vixen. Chen Hao couldn't help but think of the nurse, the spirit of all things reincarnated from the immortal emperor, giving him. Suddenly, waves of heat surged in his dantian. Appetite and lust are part of human nature. This is normal. Chen Hao quickly put away his thoughts and his mind became clear. He muttered to himself, "Let's solve Lu Qian's problem first." Not long after entering the ancient chaos desolation domain, under Lu Hui's coercion, Chen Hao took in Lu Qian, who had an average aptitude. Lu Hui's intention was obvious. Lu Qian, who started late and had ordinary talent, wanted to catch up with the others. Without a doubt, dual cultivation with Chen Hao was the fastest way. As for whether or not it would affect her future cultivation, she didn't care. She had to improve first and then build a foundation. At worst, she could turn into a mortal or reincarnate to make up for it. Although Chen Hao tried to persuade her, Lu Hui insisted on her idea. In the end, Chen Hao had no choice but to agree. Since they couldn't escape from this, and all the girls knew about this, Chen Hao didn't have to insist. If he insisted, he would be pretending to be serious. When a man faced a woman, especially a beautiful woman, how many good birds could there be? A ray of light flashed, and Lu Qian suddenly appeared in front of Chen Hao. "Chen Hao, Xiao Qian, I realize that as your cultivation level increases, you become more and more beautiful. Is it?" "Of course it is. Come, let me test your understanding." Chen Hao, "Sure. I didn't pay attention before because we didn't have any common experiences, but it's different now." Chen Hao, "Sure. I'm him and he's me. There's no difference. The grudge in your heart shouldn't exist. Look at Xiao Hui. She knows everything and can transcend everything. I pay attention, you pay attention. I'm me. Immerse yourself in another me, and that's me. Open your mind." As Chen Hao spoke, lotus flowers bloomed from his lips and turned into the sound of the great Tao. There was no other way. Chen Hao knew that Lu Qian's knot in her heart was related to him. However, the real crux of the problem was the crack in Lu Hui's heart between the second life and his original body. With Lu Qian's current realm and state of mind, she couldn't understand the mysteries of the 9 lives profound technique. Therefore, Chen Hao didn't pay attention before because Lu Qian's heart wasn't with his original body. How could he pay attention? Therefore, Chen Hao could only use the great Tao to remove the knot in Lu Qian's heart. Save people. Hiss. Lu Qian's Daoist robe was instantly removed by Chen Hao. Her graceful body was pulled into Chen Hao's embrace. The in-depth examination soon began. Nurse Lu Hui, who had been paying attention to the situation, closed her legs tightly together. Her eyes were wide open, and her tongue was sticking out. Her body was uncomfortably hot. Chapter 1142. This girl had grown up in a high-tech environment that was similar to Earth. Her mind was already very mature. How could she withstand this kind of stimulation? Under normal circumstances, Chen Hao would block her perception at this time. However, this time, the shameless Chen Hao seemed to have forgotten. "Oh my God, big sister is so fierce?" Big sister actually bit me. So embarrassing. She even told me that it was disgusting. So crazy. Is it really that comfortable? But my nose is about to bleed. I can't watch. Phew. I've finally entered the cycle. Thank goodness. The young nurse fell limply within the palace within the world of Chen Hao's mind, and she heaved a long sigh of relief. She seemed even more exhausted than Lu Qian in a great battle. Her Daoist robe was completely drenched, and her beautiful face was even covered in dense red clouds, causing her to be extremely tender and beautiful. The feeling was mutual. Lu Qian, who had been awakened by the great Dao Sanskrit chant, obtained unprecedented satisfaction from the fusion of yin and yang with Chen Hao. Her spirit and body had truly fused together. Chen Hao did not need to do it deliberately. He was wholehearted, charming and intoxicating, but he was able to quickly close the gap between them and improve through dual cultivation. He quietly changed Lu Qian, who had average aptitude, from the bottom. At the same time as they went deeper, they also changed Tantai Lian, Leng Ninghuan, Leng Ningle, Chen Xiaoqing and Xiao Mei, who were relatively less talented. 500 years passed quickly. To Chen Hao, it was a charming journey for nannies. In just 500 years, everyone broke through the layers of Dao mark illusions and arrived in front of a powerful barrier that was blooming with an ancient aura. Si Xian, the 9 true immortals Ao Tian, and the others all gathered together at this moment. Chen Hao's 2nd to 6th lives were temporarily taken into Chen Hao's mind and imprisoned. There was no other way. Chen Hao did not want to quarrel with himself. Similarly, for the 5 clones to improve normally, he naturally would not fuse with them. It's only been 500 years. I didn't think we'd all reach the end of the 1st level. A Dao severing true immortal said in shock as he glanced at Proud Heaven and the others. Proud Heaven and the others, especially Xiao Mei, were well aware of the situation. But now, the aura that Xiao Mei was emitting shocked the 9 Dao severing true immortals and Si Xian. They knew that it was Chen Hao who had brought it on. Pan Dong Lu, Pan Dong Xing, Long Yi, and his Dao partner Tian Xan were all much more talented than Xiao Mei, but now, Xiao Mei's progress had left them in the dust. Having a Dao companion like Chen Hao was truly something to be envied by others. Fortunately, in these 500 years, Chen Hao had given them special treatment in pairs, enlightening them with the Sanskrit chants of the great Dao and endless pressure. Only then did they not fall behind. As for the group of big-ass beauties that Ito Tai had brought along, Chen Hao did not care about them at all. However, their starting points were relatively high, and they were all from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. With the help of a freak like Ito Tai, they barely managed to keep up with the group. There are still 500 years left. In my opinion, Chen Hao, why don't you preach to them, us here alone? Si Xian said after some hesitation. For someone like Si Xian, whose cultivation level was higher than Chen Hao's, listening to the Dao chants once was enough. Even if Chen Hao preached again, it would be useless to Si Xian and the 9 Dao severing true immortals before Chen Hao made a breakthrough. Si Xian's original intention was to enter the 2nd level. However, Si Xian did not say that. She even replaced the words, them, with us. The 9 Dao severing true immortals' mission was to protect Chen Hao, Proud Heaven, and the others. Naturally, they would not express any opinions. Moreover, they had entered the 2nd level before and knew how terrifying it was. Unlike the 1st level in the outer region, they had not encountered any god's consciousness in 500 years. However, the 2nd level was where the god's consciousness of an ancient almighty being could be encountered at any time. Not to mention, there were still 500 years left in the agreed time with Elon. Although Proud Heaven and the others were powerful, other than Ito Tai, they were all Daoyuo Jingxian. Moreover, their strength was uneven. Once they entered the 2nd level, they would most likely encounter problems even if they stayed together. Si Xian's suggestion was undoubtedly the best choice. Teacher Si Xian, I don't think it's necessary. Chen Shui suddenly said. I also think that this is not the way to go. Hu Mainyang looked at Chen Hao and said. We have already been training for 500 years. The remaining 500 years is just enough for us to digest and consolidate our cultivation. That's right. I have the same idea. Senior brother, take me into your mental world. Coiling Dragon said directly. Boss, I want to go in too. I'm about to collapse. I have to stop and meditate for a while. Brother, take me in. Chen Nen said directly. Brother, you've given us 500 years. Leave the remaining 500 years for yourself. Otherwise, we'd rather never follow you. We all know what you're thinking. We also want to walk side by side with you. However, the Tao really needs to be walked alone. We don't want you to slow down because of us. Moreover, brother, you're making us too tired, mentally tired. We feel that as long as we can keep moving forward and our lifespan can keep up, that's enough. It won't be too late to help us when you've reached the peak. Chen Hao wanted to open his mouth to speak, but Proud Heaven and the others interrupted him one by one. It was as if they had discussed this beforehand. They did not give him a chance to speak at all. It was only when Qin Yan said this sentence that Chen Hao understood what was going on. Clearly, they had discussed this before they gathered. However, they excluded the powerful Si Xian and the 9 true immortals. Little Yan, aren't you thinking too much? Can't you feel that I've also improved a lot in the past 500 years? Moreover, I think this is very good. Chen Hao finally found a chance to speak and looked at the others. Boss, we're not good. Don't insist. When you weren't here, we looked forward to your return every day. When you came back, we didn't feel much in the 10-direction territory and the extraterritorial battlefield. But now, boss, I don't want to follow you anymore. I'll take little Lon Lon with me to help you manage Proud Heaven. You can come back and meet me when you're free. Give me some treasures and teach me some divine abilities and lost techniques that are suitable for me. Lan Feng choked as he pulled Shui Lan, his Taoist companion, and said, You little brat, have you tasted the sweetness of life and stopped thinking about improving yourself? Chen Hao looked at Shui Lan and stared at Lan Feng. 5th update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1144. How could that be? Little Yen said that when you reach the peak of martial arts, even the chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. As the son of Providence and one of your closest subordinates, how can I not ascend to heaven? Now, I just need to keep moving forward. I don't want to die of old age when you reach the peak. Moreover, boss, I feel like I don't exist beside you. When I commanded the army of 10,000 people in the foreign battlefield, it felt so good. Cough cough, lying about that feeling. Boss, don't blame me. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. What's the saying again? People have to live their own lives. Yes, that's it. Boss, I'll be your brother for life, but I also have to live my own lives. If I stay by your side, no matter how fast my cultivation advances, if I meet little Lan Lan now, she won't even look at me. Lan Feng, what do you mean? Shui Lan asked in a low voice. Cough cough. Lan Lan, I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Lan Feng hurriedly comforted Shui Lan, but his eyes were fixed on Chen Hao. Live my own life. You're right. Although I know you're talking nonsense and don't want to affect me. Chen Hao frowned slightly as he stared at Lan Feng and said, walking together on the path of the great Tao. Perhaps I really didn't think it through, or perhaps I should change my method. Have you all decided? Chen Hao's eyes swept across Pan Long and the others. Yes, senior brother. Pan Long said in a low voice. Boss, your talent is too abnormal. Before this, we only wanted to fight side by side with you, so we didn't think about this. However, after 500 years, we've seen it clearly. You're willing to sacrifice for us, so how can we be your burden? What kind of brothers are we? Boss, if you were us, what would you do? If you're our brother, just agree to our request. After 500 years, we think we're more suitable to be your support. Du Jing said with a heavy expression. All right, all of you come in. Chen Hao didn't insist. He slowly glanced at everyone and said softly, Buzz. As he spoke, a resplendent light shone from his glabella, enveloping his women and siblings. Soon after, they all disappeared into his mental world, leaving only Si Xian and the 9 true immortals by his side. Itoda, who had advanced to the late stage of the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, also had the strength to break into the 2nd level, although it was a little dangerous. However, Itoda didn't ask to stay. If he stayed, it would mean that Chen Hao would have to take care of him. Furthermore, he had already discussed it with Proud Heaven and the others. Naturally, he wouldn't stand out at this time. Up to now, although Itoda still maintained the same title, in fact, there was no master-servant contract between him and Chen Hao. It was impossible for Chen Hao to sign another contract with him. Although he hoped to be like before and always be immersed in Chen Hao's mind, it was obviously impossible. Because he was already Chen Hao's brother. After putting everyone away, Chen Hao raised his head and stared at the endless void, standing there for a long time. Xian and the 9 true immortals didn't expect such a thing to happen. However, as bystanders, they could see clearly that such a decision was undoubtedly the best choice for everyone and Chen Hao. They could also see Chen Hao's helplessness. Especially at this moment, the figure standing there with the loneliness in his eyes made Xian and the 9 true immortals dare not speak lightly. The great Tao was ruthless, and the great Tao walked alone. On the path of cultivation, no matter how much a cultivator struggled, it seemed that they couldn't escape from such a trajectory. Going against the heavens, if you didn't move forward, you would fall behind. As one's age increased, one's comprehension would become less and less agile. Appropriately slowing down one's pace was a matter of tension and relaxation. However, if one stopped moving because of everyone, it couldn't be measured by whether one's lifespan was exhausted or not. It was very likely that it would affect one's highest achievements in the future. Experts were destined to experience a lonely journey and move forward alone. Chen Hao, who was far more talented than his siblings, was even more so. Got it? Chen Hao frowned slightly. After standing there for a full hour, a trace of excitement suddenly appeared on his face, breaking the silence. Got what? Xian, who was originally affected by Chen Hao's mood and had been paying attention to Chen Hao, suddenly frowned and asked. You'll know when the time comes. Chen Hao's lonely mood seemed to have been swept away. After glancing at Xian, he said rather mysteriously, Have you entered the 2nd level? However, you don't have to worry about my strength. I have no problem persevering for 500 years. Xian said confidently. Hearing Xian's words, Chen Hao looked at the 9 true immortals. After seeing the 9 true immortals nod at the same time, he said, All right, let's go, we'll enter now. I've been looking forward to the God's will of the ancient Almighty for a long time. Chen Hao's pitch-black eyes were like sharp swords piercing through the air, blooming with 2 rays of excitement and sharpness. He, who seemed to have found a solution, was completely alive at this moment. Chen Hao took the lead and rushed towards the barrier, disappearing in a flash. Let's go! Xian and the 9 true immortals followed closely behind. Buzz! 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 Soon after, Chen Hao, Xian, and the 9 true immortals appeared on the 2nd level of the ancient chaos void. Boom! Rumble! Die! At the instant Chen Hao and the others entered, a pressure that could collapse the heavens and obliterate the earth directly pressed down like a mountain, and dense blood and killing intent assaulted their faces. The scene before their eyes was numerous dark red clouds of lead, enormous hands that blotted out the sky, brilliant sword lights, resplendent fist lights. All sorts of terrifying divine abilities and laws fluttered about in the sky while numerous figures appeared, and the shouts of battle that resounded through the heavens and the earth were deafening. Boom! 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 Almost in an instant, Xian and the 9 true immortals could not help but activate a powerful protective immortal light. What a terrifying Tao-mark illusory realm! Xian shouted, and her slender jade-like fingers bloomed with crystal light, attacking a terrifying sword light that was pressing down on her. The 9 true immortals were also caught in the battle at the same time. Although their minds were clear and were not confused by the illusory realm created by the Tao-mark pressure, they still had to condense their divine ability laws to fight against it. This state was inevitable before one could break through the illusory realm. Otherwise, even if it was an illusory realm, the effect of the attack would be as real, especially in the aspect of the mind. Otherwise, once one's mind was lost and truly integrated into the illusory realm, one would fall into a state of eternal damnation, and the final result would be one's own death. It's indeed much stronger than the first level. Chen Hao's eyes bloomed with a dazzling golden light, piercing through all the illusory realm. He stood proudly on the spot, and no matter how the terrifying Dao mark pressure approached him, his aura did not change at all. But it still doesn't seem to be enough. Chen Hao murmured. Chapter 1145. Back in the vast thousand primal chaos world, Chen Hao had spent hundreds of years in the Immortal Sutra's sacred land. He had even broken through the last level of the Immortal Sutra's sacred land. Facing the pain of the pressure, his state of mind and will had been honed to a terrifying level. This was the strongest aspect of his realm. In the first level, all the Dao mark illusions had no effect on Chen Hao. But now, although the second level was much stronger and could reflect Chen Hao's state of mind and make him fall into the Dao mark illusions, it was still within Chen Hao's tolerance and did not have any effect on tempering him. Therefore, Chen Hao immediately used the Fiery Golden Eyes ability, causing all the illusions to disappear. All that was left was the pure pressure of the Dao marks and the ancient aura that filled the air. Chen Hao hesitated for a moment as he sized up the desolate, messy, and devastated ground that was covered in ravines. Then he scanned the surroundings. The 9 true immortals and Xianxia who were locked in battle flashed past Chen Hao's eyes. There was no need to talk about the 9 old fellows, but Chen Hao did not linger on Xianxia for even a moment. In the beginning, the young and vigorous Chen Hao might have fantasized about the penetrative ability of the fiery golden eyes. But now, Chen Hao disdained such actions that disturbed one's heart. Nothing. The scene within 100 million miles appeared in Chen Hao's eyes. What disappointed Chen Hao was that he did not find the legendary God's will. I'll train alone for now. Chen Hao sat down cross-legged. Crystalline light flickered on his forehead as his 2 second and third animus, as well as his 3 outsider clones, the Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree, the tree of life, and the spiritual spring sea, flew out from his mind. You messed with my woman. The moment the second anima appeared, it immediately roared at Chen Hao. Obviously, it had discovered Lu Qian's abnormality. Fuck, what do you mean by yours? Aren't you me? Scram to the side and train. If you continue to blabber, I will never give you the chance to think independently. At worst, I will destroy you and refine a new life. Chen Hao scolded without hesitation. Here you go. Although Chen Hao's mouth was full of praise, he still conjured up a complete memory beam and sent it into his second anima's forehead. It was a memory of all the feelings and insights he had experienced with Lu Qian, as well as all the other details. As expected, after being connected to the memories, Second Life's expression looked much better. He glared at Chen Hao and said, "At least you have a conscience. I will definitely be stronger than you. In the future, I will be the one in control. I am the one who has gathered the faith of millions. You have a backbone. I like people like me. Work hard. As long as your mind is strong enough, your influence will naturally reach home, and I will naturally favor your wife more. Damn, why do I feel that this is a little evil? Get out of here. Just you wait." Boundless faith power enveloped Second Life. In an instant he pierced through the void, as if he didn't feel the pressure of the surrounding Dao marks. He allowed it to descend upon him and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Chen Hao, you are me and I am you. Let me tell you, no matter what, I have to return to the primal chaos world. This is my obsession. Even after fusing, it will still be my obsession. Third Life didn't wait for Chen Hao to flip out. He directly used the berserk demon state and flashed away. Hee, this Lord Handsome One, Teacher Xian is so hot. Yes. This Lord will remember to take care of it. Don't mistreat yourself. I think that is what you think. I am just an emotional life form that you have suppressed. All of you shut up and scram. Chen Hao's brows were full of black lines. Damn it, was he that shameless? 2 human doppelgangers was one thing, but 3 non-human doppelgangers were too shameless. However, regardless of whether Chen Hao admitted it or not, the truth was that the 5 doppelgangers were derived from the emotions hidden in the depths of Chen Hao's mind. In fact, they were the release of his own subconscious mind. his body could be easily controlled by the powerful will of his true body. However, after the doppelgangers became independent thoughts, their personalities became their fundamental existence. Furthermore, they were directly expressed, forming the main personality that belonged to the doppelgangers' independent thoughts. Damn it. I'm like a lunatic. Fortunately, I was able to fuse. If I couldn't, wouldn't I suffer from the legendary schizophrenia? Chen Hao shook his head. Immediately after, he focused his mind and took the initiative to merge into the illusion of the Dao mark pressure. It had existed for a long time. Even if the Antiquity Chaos Desolation domain had an independent circulation system of heaven and earth spiritual qi, the Dao mark pressure left behind by the great battle of ancient almighties had weakened a lot with the passage of time. Otherwise, with the strength of him, Xixian, and the others, they would definitely not be able to contend against it. The strength of the pressure was meaningless to Chen Hao. However, the profoundness contained in the Dao mark was the only way to comprehend the ancient divine arts to Chen Hao, or to all cultivators. In fact, the vast majority of the divine arts circulating in the ancient chaos vast thousand domains came from the inheritance and Dao marks of ancient relics. There were very few absolute arts that were truly created by cultivators. When he was at the first level, Chen Hao spent his free time comprehending the profoundness contained in the Dao mark. The Daoyuo Golden Wonderland was the best realm to learn from. When he was at the Hongmeng realm, his focus was already on his own Dao. Once he cut his Dao and stepped into the true immortal realm, all the absolute arts would be integrated into one. He would almost lose the ability to completely control an inheritance of an absolute art. He could only learn from it and integrate it into his own Dao. When he displayed it, it would definitely bring his own color. This was also the reason why Yi Lan could comprehend the first 3 lives of the 9 lives profound technique from the Shao clan's ancestor, but he could not cultivate it himself. Similarly, the reason why many genius cultivators imprison themselves in the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland for a long time was also because they realized that the Daoyuo Golden Wonderland was a crucial period to comprehend many divine arts laws and Dao laws in addition to condensing the embryonic form of the great world to perfection. The more solid the foundation was, the stronger one would be when they stepped into the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Not long after Chen Hao was immersed in his comprehension, the 9 true immortals were the first to break through the illusion. The 9 of them had entered the second level after all. Even though they entered at different locations, the strength of the Dao mark illusion and the profound mysteries contained were different. They were all at the edge of the second level. The strength was about the same. With their previous experience, they were naturally much faster than Xixian. God of Slaughter Chen Hao is really powerful. When the 9 of them saw that Xixian was still immersed in the illusion while Chen Hao had already entered a state of comprehension where he had forgotten everything, they were all shocked. Especially after the 9 of them used the personal intelligence system that Chen Hao gave them to investigate the information, they were even more impressed. Chapter 1146. I always thought that his strongest points were battle power, battle skills, comprehension, and physical body. I didn't expect his mental state cultivation to be his most terrifying existence. That's right. Such a powerful Dao mark illusory realm actually didn't affect him at all. This is really unbelievable. Don't forget, this is only his main body. There are also 5 clones, each of them is very abnormal. After fusing, how strong will he be? And he is only Daoyuo Jingxian now. Controller Yi Lan spared no effort to gather fate and faith for him. I think it won't be long before our vast universe galaxy will be his world. That's for sure. Oh, have you sensed that the laws of heaven and earth in the entire chaotic ancient desolation realm have undergone a subtle change since the beginning of the last 100 years? Additionally, the spiritual qi of heaven and earth seems to have become much denser. I originally thought that it was because the spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the region that we entered just happened to be denser. However, the region with the weakest spiritual qi of heaven and earth was even denser than the region with the strongest spiritual qi of heaven and earth when I entered the second floor. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have cared. I thought that it was because of killing God Chen Hao and the others' strong fate. Could it be that the world's shaking caused a change? It's very possible that it lasted for 100 years and even affected the ancient chaos void region. I'm afraid it's the fluctuations of the entire ancient chaos void region. It can't be? You guys all felt the Heaven Dao laws changing? That's right. You didn't? I thought that I had the possibility of making further progress and was preparing to go into seclusion for a period of time. It turns out that everyone is the same. It must be that our vast universe galaxy's fate has become stronger, and the Heaven Dao law's restrictions on us have loosened a bit. Alright, it's definitely not a bad thing. Right now, we can't even guess what happened. Let's go, we'll split up and scout the surroundings. Protecting the two of them is the most important thing. Chi. The 9 Severance true immortals immediately turned into streams of light and flew towards the depths. Dao mark illusory realms were everywhere, but after countless years, these Dao mark illusory realms had formed distinct coverage areas. Within 10 billion li, there was basically the same Dao mark pressure illusory realm. Once broken, there would be no effect within 10 billion li. What the 9 true immortals feared the most was the divine sense of a god. After all, the strength of the Dao mark illusory realm had a pattern that could be found. The deeper one went, the stronger it would become. However, there was no pattern to the divine senses. If one's luck was bad, then one might encounter it at any moment. Once one encountered it, then it would be extremely terrifying. Even they had to choose to avoid it at the first possible moment. Otherwise, if they were locked onto by the divine senses of the divine senses, then it would practically be death. The only fortunate thing was that very few God intents had gained sentience. 99% of God intents were obsessions or evil intents left behind by ancient Deneng when he was on the verge of death. Obsession was better, while evil was more ferocious. However, no matter which type it was, all of them lacked agility and were rather sluggish. Moreover, they basically only moved within a certain range. Once they escaped the range enveloped by the divine sense, they wouldn't be pursued again. Otherwise, no one would dare to enter the second floor. You're not affected? An hour later, Xian finally saw through the Dao mark illusory realm. When she saw Chen Hao sitting cross-legged with Dao laws revolving around him, she checked the records in her brain. Immediately, she looked as if she was looking at a monster and leaped to Chen Hao's side. Teacher Xian, do me a favor, Chen Hao said with a faint smile. A favor? Xian was a little surprised. They're often in my great mental world, so the gains they can obtain are already very limited. I think that if they enter your great mental world, then the gains will be even greater. I can give you the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood that I condensed. It will also be very beneficial to you. The comprehension of my 3 great immortal sutras is contained in it. Your third anima is also comprehended in it. Oh? That's it? Yes, is that okay? It's okay, but I want to know your true intentions. Xian stared at Chen Hao with resplendent eyes. All right. As you can see, the outer perimeter is really meaningless to me. I'm preparing to go deeper. My greatest strength is my ability to withstand pressure. But if I go deeper and encounter a divine intent, it'll attack my soul palace and affect my mental world. I can withstand it, but I'm afraid they can't. Do you want to die? Do you think this is the first level? What did my master say? A divine intent? You want to fight a divine intent? I'm the only one who knows my situation best. To tell you the truth, when I was in the Earth Immortal realm, I fought a divine intent. I have a feeling that the only thing that can improve me here is a divine intent. Don't worry, I'll be selective. With my speed and perception, it'll be very easy for me to escape. Also, I have an undying body and the 5 lives. Even if my true body is destroyed, it won't affect my foundation. Chi. Thank you. Chen Hao didn't allow Xian to refute him. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of resplendent light that contained the profundities of time and space floated to Xian. After that, he turned into a gust of wind. Xian stomped her feet in anger, but Chen Hao's aura had completely disappeared from her senses. Not taking it? If she didn't take it, Once the essence of space and time was exhausted, the space that Chen Hao extracted from the mental world would directly collapse. Ao Tian and the others, as well as Si Xian's third life, Xiao Feng, would definitely be heavily injured. This was a completely shameless act. But Si Xian couldn't refuse in a fit of pique. Truly a scoundrel, pervert. Si Xian muttered to herself with a complicated expression. Thinking about it carefully, Chen Hao's actions weren't without reason. The Dao Mark illusory realm in the periphery didn't affect him at all. It was truly too perverted. Through the records in her brain, she saw that the 9 true immortals who came here took some time to break through the illusory realm. Under such circumstances, it was indeed not suitable for him to stay with them. In addition to his undying body and 5 perverted clones, Si Xian had a feeling that even if her master Yi Lan made a move, it would be difficult to truly kill this guy. And divine intent was indeed an attack that mainly targeted the mental state of the Soul Palace. It was also the best target to temper one's mental state, soul, and willpower. Still sealed? When Si Xian absorbed the space and time essence that Chen Hao condensed into the mental world, she wanted to see everyone's situation out of curiosity. But what made her angry was that other than Chen Hao's so-called corpse mountain and blood sea and her third life, Xiao Feng, Ao Tian and the others were all sealed by mysterious runes. Even her divine sense couldn't penetrate through. Chapter 1147. It's actually improved so much? Soon after, Si Xian was shocked again. Her third anima was currently suffering from a terrifying emotional impact amidst the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood. However, she was completely focused on comprehending the mysteries of the 3 great immortal scriptures. Her aura was dozens of times stronger than the last time they had a quarrel. She wasn't much weaker than Ao Tian and the others. It had to be known that Xiao Feng had stepped into the peak late stage of the Daoist Golden Wonderland not long ago. Back then, she was much weaker than Ao Tian and the others, but now, the adventurous spirit of challenging the limits was rooted in Chen Hao's soul. Chen Hao had been a babysitter for 500 years with Ao Tian and the others. Although he was comfortable, charming, and gentle, and didn't have any impatience, he still felt that something was missing. But now, he had found the balance between walking the Grand Dao alone and being the same. Chen Hao immediately regained his original nature. How could he be willing to leisurely advance? Hiss! An imperceptible breeze shuttled back and forth in the endless illusory realm. Occasionally, a golden light would flash and all illusions would dissipate. Buddha is in the heart, don't seek recklessly. The spirit mountain is only in your heart. Everyone has a spirit mountain pagoda, only cultivate in the spirit mountain pagoda. An ethereal voice that sounded like a whisper suddenly came from the distant void and drifted into Chen Hao's ears. Divine intent? Chen Hao, who had been moving forward for a month, suddenly had a golden light shoot out from his eyes. He saw through the illusions and a bald monk wearing a kasaya appeared in Chen Hao's line of sight. This poem. It was the first time he saw a divine intent in the ancient chaos domain. Chen Hao couldn't help but feel excited. However, after a brief moment of excitement, it turned into shock. The monk paced back and forth with a serene expression. He kept repeating 4 lines and a poem. And this poem was shockingly from Earth's Wuxia. Chen Hao was already shocked to see the bald monk's God's will, and the monk's attire was similar to that of the monks on Earth. The fact that the monk was reciting a poem from China on Earth shocked Chen Hao even more. This God's consciousness is the manifestation of the obsession left behind by the ancient Almighty when he was on the verge of death. Could it be that the ancient Almighty of the ancient chaos is related to Earth? The big monk with a peaceful expression was naturally not a manifestation of evil thoughts. At this moment, he was pacing and chanting. Clearly, he was in the midst of comprehending the Dharma that he was unable to comprehend when he was alive. Chen Hao forcefully suppressed the shock and bewilderment in his heart. He slowly and gently withdrew from his state of mind, which had merged with all things in the world, and appeared far away in the range of the divine consciousness. Without concealing his aura, Chen Hao walked towards the big monk step by step. His state of mind was immersed in the profound meaning of Buddhism. After 9 steps, Chen Hao's body was already emitting a faint 9-colored brilliance. Buddhism, the light of nature. Master, how are you? Buddha is in your heart. Do not seek recklessly. Spirited mountain is only in your heart. Everyone has a spirited mountain pagoda. Only cultivate in the spirited mountain pagoda. Master, are you from earth? Buddha is in your heart. Do not seek recklessly. Spirited mountain is only in your heart. Everyone has a spirited mountain pagoda. Only cultivate in the spirited mountain pagoda. Master, I'm also from earth. Buddha is in your heart. Do not seek recklessly. Spirited mountain is only in your heart. Everyone has a spirited mountain pagoda. Only cultivate in the spirited mountain pagoda. Chen Hao continued to ask questions. His tongue was like a lotus flower, and the sound of Tao filled the air. However, the divine consciousness was unmoved as if it did not hear him. If Si Xian and the 9 genuine immortals saw how bold Chen Hao was, they would be so shocked that their eyeballs would fall to the ground. Although this big monk was not a manifestation of evil thoughts, it was still a legendary divine consciousness. Once disturbed, its obsession would inevitably invade the soul of the cultivator. Like a plague, it would cause the cultivator to fall into its obsession and be unable to extricate themselves. It would lead to the assimilation of the origin of one's soul. Their physical body and soul would completely become a feast for the divine consciousness and be devoured completely. Fuck, isn't this just an NPC? Chen Hao felt a headache coming on. Neither born nor destroyed, neither moving nor still, Chen Hao's eyes flickered with golden light as he stared at the divine consciousness and frowned. If it was dead, its obsession would exist forever. If it was alive, its soul origin and physical body had long been annihilated. It was just a manifestation of its obsession, a divine consciousness derived from it. If it was moving, it was completely unconscious. It mechanically repeated a cycle of pacing and chanting, but it was also still. If it was still, it was moving. What a pity. If this big monk was born with spiritual intelligence, I would definitely be able to ask some secrets. Ancient chaos, earth. There must be some kind of connection. Otherwise, it would not be so coincidental. Moreover, Yi Xian came from ancient chaos to earth, and I came from earth to ancient chaos. There must be some kind of connection in the unseen world. Chen Hao frowned and pondered. He was almost certain of his guess, but he could not guess what was going on and what the specific connection was. The heart is Buddha, and Buddha is the heart. Seeking Dharma from the heart is like seeking fish from a tree. The external path is also. Big monk, perhaps we are from the same hometown. It is fate that brought us together. Junior will help you release your obsession and let it return to its original place. Let it enter the cycle of reincarnation again. After Chen Hao finished speaking, light suddenly bloomed from between his eyebrows and swept toward the divine consciousness. Buzz. When Chen Hao's divine sense came into contact with the god's divine sense, the monk seemed to have woken up abruptly and turned to look at Chen Hao. Amitabha. While Chen Hao was still in shock, the big monk suddenly put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. His voice seemed to penetrate the 9 heavens and 10 earths, majestic and vast. At the same time, endless golden light bloomed from the big monk's body. At this moment, Chen Hao suddenly felt an extremely terrifying pressure crash down on him. With a flash of golden light, the divine consciousness took the form of the big monk and disappeared between Chen Hao's eyebrows. Chen Hao had long been mentally prepared to provoke the divine consciousness, but when this obsession left behind by an ancient almighty attacked the depths of his soul, Chen Hao still spat out a mouthful of blood essence. Chen Hao's mind bloomed and opened the mental world of his soul residence. At the same time, the vast Tao sound of the 6-syllable mantra suddenly resounded throughout his mind. Boom, boom, boom. Thief, thief, thief. At this moment, in Chen Hao's mental world, mountains collapsed and the earth cracked, Tao laws tumbled, and terrifying explosions instantly filled the entire space. Countless cracks appeared on the barrier of the mental world in an instant. At the same time, on Chen Hao's body, which was already sitting cross-legged, it was as if mines hidden under his skin had been detonated. Blood splattered everywhere. Like an egg, like a fetus, like a damp, like a transformation. Like color, like colorless. Like a thought, like a thought. Like a thought, like a thought. I will lead you to the ultimate nirvana and annihilation. Like the annihilation of countless boundless beings. After a brief moment of shock, Chen Hao forcibly focused his mind and put aside the thought of death. All of his mind and thoughts were immersed in reciting the supreme Buddhist scriptures. Fourth update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1148. At this moment, the only one who insisted on staying in Chen Hao's mind was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor, the little nurse, Lu Hui, who was not afraid of death. Her face was pale and she trembled in fear. She was not affected by the pressure of any god's will, but the terrifying explosion of the great world in Chen Hao's mind and the rapid cracking of the barrier of the great world made the young nurse scared out of her wits. Her heart was in her mouth. True immortal king. Lu Hui's mind spread out, sensing the terrifying obsessions that filled every corner of Chen Hao's mind. In her soul, some kind of memory seemed to have awakened, and she murmured, "Immortal king obsessions. Liang Wuchen, Dong Aoshue." Chen Wuliang and Han Mei, who had changed their names to Liang Wuchen and Dong Aoshue, looked excited. They looked at the two tokens flying over quickly and stretched out their hands to receive them respectfully. Your aptitudes are not bad. There's still some room for improvement. Work hard. Yes, Dean. Chen Wuliang replied respectfully. Many cultivators around looked at the two of them with a trace of surprise. To them, the life aura of the two of them was already frighteningly old. Moreover, their performance in the selection competition was mediocre. At best, they barely managed to enter the Odd Armor Academy. However, what was unexpected was that when the dean gave the two of them the sect tokens, he actually praised them. The strength of this pair of Dao companions is very ordinary. Do you see anything special about them? Yes, of course. The life aura of the two of them is probably tens of millions of years old. They're very old. Is there a need to say that? I mean the powerful part. The elders praised them in public. Idiot, that's what I said. Think about it, they're so old, but they're still so ambitious. They're competing with a group of little brats like us. Their spirit is commendable. How can the dean not encourage them? You're really sarcastic with your words. How? I'm just telling the truth. It's not that I'm looking down on them, but they're only at the fourth tier of Dao severing at such a young age. They're the same as us, and their battle prowess is far inferior to ours. Furthermore, they're dual cultivators. In my opinion, they'll at most reach the sixth tier of Dao severing in this lifetime. I don't think so. Although their life auras are old, they are full of vitality. In my opinion, it must be because the greater thousand worlds they came from were too weak, and the restrictions of the heavenly Dao limited their improvement. I watched a few of their battles before, and both of them had obvious improvements in every battle. No way. You watched all their battles? What's so surprising about that? Don't you know about Brother Zhao Yin's hobby? That's true. I forgot about it. The cultivator who spoke suddenly recalled Zhao Yin's shameless hobby and came to a realization. He couldn't help but look at the beautiful middle-aged woman, Dong Aoshue, who had an old aura of life but only looked like a middle-aged woman. She does have some taste. Aoshue, let's go. Chen Wuliang said after Chen Wuliang took the token and the two of them fused. Han Mei nodded slightly and immediately turned into a stream of light, entering between Chen Wuliang's eyebrows. Immediately, Chen Wuliang left directly. Due to the difference in the laws of time and space, Chen Wuliang and Han Mei had just entered the great world of Xiandi for 100 years. At this moment, Chen Hao and the others had just stepped into the ancient chaotic universe. After 100 years, with their understanding of the great world of Xiandi and Yilan's instructions before they came, Chen Wuliang and Han Mei finally chose to enter the sect. Chen Wuliang's realm and strength were second only to Yilan and the Shao clan's patriarch in the vast universe galaxy and even the 10 major galaxies in the ancient chaos universe. However, in the great world of Xiandi, they were ordinary people. If it weren't for the fact that the great world of Xiandi had a complete law restriction, it would be difficult for them to move an inch. There were too many people who were stronger than them. Even cultivators of the same realm made Chen Wuliang, who was insufferably arrogant in the ancient chaos universe, feel ashamed. They were old and weak. Such mockery brought great pressure to the two of them. What made Chen Wuliang even angrier was that although Han Mei was almost middle-aged, her appearance was still charming. In this situation, if they were in the ancient chaos universe, it wouldn't arouse the covetous eyes of anyone at all. After all, she was already Chen Wuliang's Dao companion, and she was already the mother of his child. However, in the great world of Xiandi, there were too many young people who cut their Dao to become perfected immortals. Moreover, they didn't have a Dao companion. There was no emotional sustenance in their hearts, only the venting of their desires. The charming Han Mei undoubtedly attracted the covetous eyes of many perverted guys. If it weren't for the law restriction, Chen Wuliang would have vomited blood because he didn't have enough strength to protect his woman here. How much of an impact would this have on the arrogant Chen Wuliang? Due to helplessness, Han Mei usually stayed in the great world in Chen Wuliang's mind except when necessary. Chen Wuliang quickly compromised and chose to step into the sect to obtain protection. This is our palace. Chen Wuliang followed the induction of the token and soon entered a huge palace. Sensing the aura in the palace, Chen Wuliang was excited. At the same time, he took out Han Mei from the great world in his mind. Wuliang, according to the space-time law gap that Brother Yi mentioned, 2,800 years have passed in our vast universe galaxy. After Han Mei came out, she didn't seem to be interested in the powerful aura in the palace and said directly, "Yes, it's still early. What's wrong? I regret coming here. Don't worry. I'll become stronger soon. For the time being, I can only let you suffer a little," Chen Wuliang said. "I don't feel wronged. It's just that, after coming here, I really feel that we're old. I can't adapt to the great world of Xiandi at all, and I don't have the obsession to bravely advance. Moreover, I can't help you much, and I'll make others look down on you. Han Mei, what's wrong with you? How about I don't appear in the future? I'll meditate in your mind's great world and slack off for me. Your progress is very fast. I believe that in tens of thousands of years, you might be able to break through to the 6th level of cutting path. At that time, your age won't be considered old compared to them. Of course. However, I won't break through so quickly. Coming here, I can feel that with my current realm, there's still a lot of potential to be dug out. In the same realm, I can't be the best, but I can at least be above average, right? Brother Yi seemed to be very awesome in the past. I'm too bad. I won't have the face to see him when I go back. I know. What I mean is, if you have the chance, just find a Dao companion who can help you. Han Mei, are you kidding? Chapter 1150. Wuliang, I'm not joking. I really feel that I'm too lousy. I'm affecting you. Don't talk nonsense. I'm not in the mood and I don't have the desire. No matter how lousy you are, you're still my wife. Even if you're an ordinary person, I won't despise you. I used to be flirtatious, but I'm past that age. Don't say such things again. I know what you're worried about. At worst, we'll cultivate quietly in the sect for a while. If there's a mission, you can come to my mind world or wait for me here. When the 100,000 years are up, we'll return to ancient chaos and never come back. Chen Wuliang said. Are you serious? Of course. Before I came here, I was indeed very ambitious. But now that I'm here, I'm just a nobody. If we came here when we were Zenith Heaven Golden Celestials or when we just became Primordial Supremes, perhaps the situation would be better, but not by much. I can't help but be impressed. In this place, let alone me, even if Tianxi came, he would at most be a first-rate genius. It's hard to be a top-notch genius. In the 10 galaxies of ancient chaos, he was second only to Yi Lan and the Shao clan's patriarch. However, after coming here, he couldn't even reach the middle level. First, he was too old. He had lived for tens of millions of years, but he was only a Dao severing perfected immortal, and he had a cultivation partner. For the cultivators of the great thousand worlds of the immortal emperors, this was too inferior. They should have found a mountain to quietly enjoy life and retire. However, in order to seek protection, Chen Wuliang had to enter a third-rate school. Even so, he was barely qualified. Second, it was fine that he was old, but his combat strength was only mediocre in the same realm. Combining these 2 points, although Chen Wuliang didn't want to admit it, he knew that his aptitude was indeed very ordinary in the great world of Xiandi. Of course, Chen Wuliang also knew that the main reason was the restriction of ancient chaos. Now that there was no restriction of ancient chaos's heavenly Dao, he could certainly improve quickly. However, it was too late. Being a Dao-severing cultivator meant that he had missed the best time to shape his Dao, which was like missing the best age to learn. His Dao had taken shape. No matter how much he improved, it was difficult to change the basic embryonic form. I wonder how Hao is now. Hearing Chen Wuliang mention Chen Hao, Han Mei's expression became a little gloomy. Don't worry, old brother Yi has placed all of his hopes on Tianxi. Even he prays for Hao, day and night. Nothing will happen to him. I only hope that he can successfully undergo nirvana and return to vast universe galaxy through the call of faith. At that time, my wish can only be fulfilled by Tianxi. No matter what, we have to get him here as soon as possible. Chen Wuliang said. The two of them didn't know that Chen Hao had returned to ancient chaos not long after they left. They also didn't know that Shui Mei had stepped into the Milky Way tunnel leading to the great world of Xiandi in order to find them. At the same time, what they did not know was that the unification of the ancient chaos great thousand world and the removal of the barriers between the 10 galaxies had caused a fundamental change in the ancient chaos great thousand world. Heaven Dao, Spacetime. That was when Shui Mei entered the Starry River Tunnel, and Chen Hao and Proud Heaven entered the Yorwild's realm, and the Kiliacosm of worlds began to tremble. Since then, the space-time law of the ancient chaos great thousand world and the great world of Xiandi had become completely unified. They were completely equal. In the great thousand world, it was basically impossible for the space-time law to be completely equal. However, the ancient chaos great thousand world and the great world of Xiandi had become completely equal. What was going on? Bang! 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 Chen Hao's body exploded and blood splashed. His internal organs, meridians, and dantian were severely cracked. His skin and flesh were torn open. Chen Hao's mind, on the other hand, was almost completely invaded and occupied by the will of the true immortal king. Only a tiny bit of his remaining consciousness was still crazily chanting the profound meaning of the Buddhist scriptures that Chen Hao himself had comprehended. The nurse was so nervous that her face was pale and cold sweat dripped down her back. However, at this moment, there was nothing she could do to help. This was the battle between Chen Hao's soul imprint and the will of the gods and true immortals. They were all fighting in the deepest part of the soul palace and were completely intertwined. Although the little nurse was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor, due to the restrictions of her realm and her awakened abilities, she was temporarily unable to help Chen Hao. Besides, Chen Hao had told her not to do anything. Chen Hao, come back, all of you come back. I'm in danger. The immortal king's will is invading. However, when she sensed that Chen Hao's mental world was cracking more and more, and that Chen Hao's physical body was about to collapse, the young nurse finally couldn't hold it in any longer. She used her consciousness to activate her artificial intelligence and sent out an urgent cry for help. Little Hui, I'm already rushing over as fast as I can. Second Life replied. Little beauty, do I need you to tell me that? By the time I get back to you, it'll be too late. Third Life said. Fuck, what bullshit immortal king's divine will. I'll devour it in a matter of minutes. Just you wait. Don't panic, I've already killed 2 immortal kings, although they shouldn't be immortal kings. Fourth Life said arrogantly. The Dao manifestation immortal fruit tree's most powerful ability was its devouring ability. Its innate ability was to condense thousands of Daos. No matter how strong the pressure was, it would be useless against it. It was nothing more than Chen Hao's original body's comprehension of the laws of the heavenly Tao that limited his ability to devour the pressure of the laws of the heavenly Tao. I'll be there soon. Don't worry, little girl. How dare you touch my handsome brother? You're asking for it. Don't worry, as soon as I'm here, my handsome brother's body will recover immediately. As for the rest, there's Tao manifestation and spiritual fountain. This was the reply of the freakish fifth life's tree of life. Little Hui, don't worry, I'll be there soon. With my endless energy, I'll grind the immortal kings to death. Don't worry. Sixth life's spiritual fountain replied. Hurry up, hurry up. Lu Hui was slightly surprised, but she soon understood. Although Chen Hao's original body had been separated from his fifth life and formed a separate consciousness, they had been separated after they had truly merged. The connection between the origins could no longer be severed. Most likely, they had sensed Chen Hao's danger the moment he was in danger and had rushed over. Bang, 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 creak, rumble. The terrifying explosions in his body and mind intensified, and Chen Hao's situation became more and more dangerous. Original body, little Hui, I'm here. Less than an hour later, the second anima pierced through the air. As it flew through the air, it let out a roar. Boundless power of faith condensed into the Milky Way of the nine heavens, which poured down toward Chen Hao, who no longer resembled a human. Scram! Put it away from me! Merry Christmas, brothers and sisters. Chapter 1151. But at that moment, Second Life and Nurse Lu Hui were both stunned to see that Chen Hao, who was on the verge of collapse, suddenly let out an unquestionable curse. At the same time, Second Life suddenly felt his mind being controlled by the main body. He couldn't go against the main body's decision. In an instant, an endless amount of faith power poured back into his mind, causing him to freeze in place. Chen Hao, Nurse Lu Hui trembled as she called out. What's the rush? The obsession of a true immortal king isn't fake, but it's just a consciousness that hasn't given birth to sentience. After countless years, it's weakened by a lot. I'm just completely immersing myself in it, trying to comprehend it and see if I can get any useful information. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Nurse Lu Hui opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. She suddenly felt hurt. She was scared half to death, and her little heart was about to shatter. She had waited so long for reinforcements, but this guy actually said such words. It was really too shameless. Second Life was so depressed that he wanted to bang his head against the wall and die. He'd finally found a chance to show off in front of Lu Hui, but this shameless main body had done it on purpose. How could he not be depressed? Shameless. You made us worry for nothing. Handsome main body. Hello. I didn't want to swear, you're so infuriating. Next came the 4 doppelgangers, each more depressed than the last. The abnormal tree of life even said, hello. However, the 5 doppelgangers were shocked deep in their hearts. All this time, when they existed as separate consciousnesses, they felt that their unique talents and strengths were not inferior to the main bodies. In fact, they were even stronger. However, under the control of the main body could split and merge whenever he wanted. If he wanted to cut off their comprehension of the laws of divine ability, he would cut them off. If the main body was a flower, they couldn't even be considered green leaves. The tree of life, the Tao manifestation immortal fruit tree, and the spiritual spring water sea didn't really matter. After all, they weren't humans, and didn't have any unique experiences after they were born. At most, they just felt that they were stronger. However, the second and third animus had a lot of complaints. The Second Life was the little nurse Lu Hui, Lu Qian, and the women who gave birth to 2 daughters for him. Especially the most beloved Lu Hui and Lu Qian, they were robbed by this sovereign. As for the others, they were sent to the cold palace by this Chen Hao. How could he be happy? When the third life of spiritual intelligence was born and independent consciousness appeared, the first woman he recognized was Nguyen Tan Lon. She was also the only woman he had obtained. However, when his original body left the boundless chaos world, he did not even say a word to her. No matter why when Tan Lan was with him, she was still his first woman. How could he treat her like this? Moreover, he had no intention of returning to the chaotic Great Thousand World. He was also unhappy. It had to be said that the second anima and the third anima had rushed over as quickly as they could with the intention of rebelling. Saving the original body was a given, but taking advantage of the fact that the original body was heavily injured to take over the position of the leader in one fell swoop was even more important. As for letting his original body collapse, they had never thought of it. Even if he had an independent consciousness, he was still connected to the origin. No matter what, he was still their own. How could they let themselves die? Most importantly, if his original body died, their strength would be greatly reduced. This was unacceptable no matter what. All of you, scram. In the future, don't come back without my call. Do you think you can escape my detection with that little trick of yours? If you have the ability, then become really strong and I will submit to you. Chen Hao didn't care about the 5 clones' gloominess in the slightest. He directly gave the order, and the 5 clones were so angry that they vomited blood and left. The little nurse Lu Hui pouted in Chen Hao's spiritual world. She was obviously very angry. Little Hui, I didn't mean to make you worry, but I really didn't have time to tell you. After all, this is the divine thought of a true immortal king, isn't it? Actually, as long as you carefully sense this strand of my divine thought, you should understand that I will be fine. The divine thought's attack is an attack on the origin of the soul. As long as my consciousness is not destroyed, then my physical body and spiritual world will not collapse no matter how serious the injuries are, right? I don't know. But I can understand. A girl in love will have her IQ drop by 99%. This time, we are even. You promised me last time, but you went back on your word. What? You were the one who thought wrongly. I wanted to bite you. The little nurse's pretty face immediately turned red as she quibbled. Last time, for her cousin Lu Qian, she had promised Chen Hao to bite him. However, after seeing Lu Qian's bold and powerful performance and Chen Hao's demand for payment, she could not do it no matter what. Therefore, she really did bite Chen Hao a few times. Let's call it even. Seeing that Chen Hao was silent, the little nurse hurriedly added, That's more like it. Little Hui, let me ask you something. Did you feel anything when you saw the divine thought of this monk? What did you feel? For example, you felt very familiar, like you knew him. Nope. The divine thought of an ancient true immortal king, and it's from your chaotic universe. How would I know him? Oh, I know. Do you think he is related to Earth? Lu Hui suddenly thought of something. By now, Lu Hui already knew that she was basically the reincarnation of an immortal emperor. Moreover, Chen Hao had specifically asked him about the illusion that had appeared when the two of them had truly connected their souls the last time. However, Lu Hui could not answer. She had not awakened any memories of Earth, the Moon, or even the Sky River sector. What she had awakened was only the laws of inheritance that came naturally as her cultivation base and strength increased. Smart. But I really didn't feel anything. Chen Hao, do you really think I'm related to Earth? I should be the reincarnation of an immortal emperor from the Sky River sector. How could I be related to Earth? Maybe the illusion that appeared last time came from your subconscious. Impossible. It must be yours. Although I don't know what's going on, I feel that the ancient chaos boundless world, the chaotic boundless world, and even your Milky Way galaxy, and even the immortal emperor's boundless world that we're about to go to, might be related to Earth. But the outline of the great Tao and the Buddhist scriptures. Forget it, let's not talk about this anymore. One day, all the mysteries will be solved. I'll start refining. This monk, I've released his soul, but other than the divine thought's obsession, there's not a single bit of extra information. After Chen Hao finished speaking, the remaining wisp of consciousness suddenly began to grow stronger. Soon, it went from being passive to being active, and was immersed in devouring and refining the divine thought. Merry Christmas, today's update. Chapter 1152. Along the way, Chen Hao comprehended and cultivated. As the Tao mark illusions he encountered grew stronger and stronger, the number of God intents increased. This made Chen Hao feel that there must be some kind of connection between the ancient chaos boundless universe and Earth. Unfortunately, the second level of a true immortal king's God intents was already the highest realm. Moreover, Chen Hao had never encountered a God intent that had given birth to sentience. However, as Chen Hao continued to go deeper, he gradually gained a vague understanding of the Great War of the ancient times. The Dao mark illusions left behind by the ancient powerhouses and the God intents that were born allowed Chen Hao to see the shadows of the 9 great races. They seemed to be able to confirm the factions in Earth's ancient myths and legends. The stars moved and the flowers bloomed and withered. 500 years passed in the blink of an eye. Almost there, chi. When it was almost time for the agreement of 1,000 years, Chen Hao recalled his 5 clones. However, he still did not merge them and only absorbed them into the great world in his mind. 8,000 years, Xian and the 9 true immortals, who were far away from Chen Hao, did not continue to go deeper after breaking through the Dao mark illusions. What a freak. The distance he went in was at least 10 times greater than mine. How strong are the Dao mark illusions there? There must be a lot of God intents. During this time, Xian had the 9 true immortals carefully exploring the path. Coupled with her good luck, she was able to avoid the God intents in advance and did not encounter any real danger. However, during these 500 years, she still contacted Chen Hao several times. Through her personal computer, she roughly knew where Chen Hao was now. Forget it, I won't contact him. At this time, Xian wanted to contact Chen Hao and check his location, but she resisted in the end. Even she herself had discovered her own abnormality. She did not talk about love, nor did she talk about love, but why was her heart always on him? Was it because of his freakish talent and strength, or something else? Xian did not know. However, she knew one thing. Before meeting him, she had been looking forward to quickly growing up in the third life and quickly stepping into the ranks of true immortals. This was because her original body had no room for improvement. But ever since he met Chen Hao, the Sanskrit Great Tao, the 9 Lives Profound Technique, the 3 Great Immortal Scriptures, many things that she could not learn from her master, Yi Lan, were presented before her. For a cultivator, this was like opening up a brand new path, giving her new passion and anticipation, as if she had been reborn. I've already lived for tens of millions of years. For tens of millions of years, whether it's my true self, the second anima, or the third anima, I've never felt this way before meeting him. But now, is just a little brat. Even his father calls me teacher Xian. The more Xian thought about it, the more confused she became. As the Buddha had said, a single thought of a person would have 84,000 worries. This was the realm of life. People were often troubled, no matter how big or small. If one could conquer their mind, one could become a Buddha immediately. A day later, in the sky above Chen Hao, Xian, and the 9 true immortals, the space-time gate of Yilan's token arrived as scheduled. The 1,000-year experience in the ancient chaos wilderness was finally over. What surprised and puzzled Chen Hao, Xian, and the 9 true immortals was that the space-time gate that appeared this time seemed to be much more powerful than when they had entered. Whether it was the aura or the profound meaning of space-time it contained, they had all improved tremendously. There was no need to carefully sense it at all to clearly feel that the changes were too great. However, what they did not expect was that a series of even more shocking things were yet to come. Stepping out of the space-time gate, they did not return to the divine temple of the human race, but to a huge palace that was 10 times larger than the divine temple of the human race. This was one of the reasons. Secondly, the rich spiritual qi of heaven and earth and the heavenly Tao laws immediately shocked Chen Hao, Xian, and the 9 true immortals. Chen Shui and the rest of Ao Tian's group were released from the great world in Xian's mind. When they were released by Chen Hao and appeared one after another, they were also shocked speechless. Thirdly, and what shocked Chen Hao and the others the most was that Yi Lan, who was standing with a smile, had 9 extremely powerful cutting Tao true immortals by his side. Moreover, they were clearly not of the human race. Greetings, Master. What made Chen Hao almost fall to the ground was that Yi Lan actually took the lead in saluting him with cupped fists. Immediately after, the 9 powerful true immortals from the various galaxies followed suit and saluted him. What the fuck? Not only was Chen Hao stunned, but Si Xian, the 9 true immortals who followed them, and Ao Tian and the rest of Ao Tian's group were all stunned. What was going on? Amidst the clouds, Yi Lan slowly explained all the changes in the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds and the current situation. Chen Hao and the others felt as if they were in a dream. The ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds, which had been divided for hundreds of millions of years, was actually unified by Yi Lan so easily. The body and soul of the Shao clan's patriarch had been destroyed, but the Shao clan's patriarch's true identity turned out to be from the great world of Xiandi, and there was an even stronger existence behind him. Such a situation cast a shadow over the temporarily peaceful and prosperous ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds. After a long talk, Chen Hao and the others understood the current situation of the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds and made adjustments to their previous decision. What made Chen Hao feel ridiculous was that he didn't know anything and was inexplicably pushed to the position of controller by Yi Lan. No matter how much Chen Hao objected, in the face of Yi Lan's determination and the insistence of the 9 true immortals, Chen Hao, who was only from the Daoist Golden Wonderland and was regarded as the reincarnation of an immortal emperor, could not shirk away. In the end, the 10 of them agreed to Yi Lan's plan of temporarily holding the position of controller. Everything in the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds was still decided by Yi Lan and the 9 true immortals for the time being. After all, Chen Hao was still young, and his realm was only that of the Daoist Jinxian. It was impossible for him to be in charge of the entire ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds. However, Chen Hao, who had inexplicably become the principal of the number 1 academy in the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds, did not escape from his 1,000 years of Dao teaching in the vast universe Great Thousand Worlds. Moreover, it was arranged to be held in the number 1 academy in the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds, and the 10 true immortals cast spells at the same time to condense space-time laws. The 10 years of Dao teaching became 1,000 years of Dao teaching. Proud Heaven, Huyan Aobua, and the other original brothers and sisters had all become the top geniuses of the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds. To be more precise, the Proud Heaven Association had over 10,000 people who had passed the selection of the top geniuses of the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds to become students of the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds. This time, in addition to the top geniuses of the ancient chaos Great Thousand Worlds, Chen Hao's Dao teaching also included the peak late-stage Grandmaster Supremacy Realm experts and Dao severing true immortals of the 10 major galaxies. The scale of the Dao teaching had reached an unprecedented scale, and it was several times larger than the Dao teaching of 1,000 years ago that was limited to the vast universe Great Thousand Worlds. First update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1153. Chen Hao was just a golden immortal of the Great Firmament, but he had the titles of Killing God Chen Hao, President of the Proud Heavens Association, Controller of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms, Principal of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms, Principal of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Realms, due to Yi Lan's request, as well as for his own face and the future of the Ancient Chaos Universe. Chen Hao had no choice but to bring out all of his trump cards. His 5 avatars were all used. His true body preached the Tao, the great Tao's Buddhist chanting, the lotus flower blossoming, resounding through the heavens and earth. The second anima bloomed with a river of faith, covering the entire space. The third anima filled every corner with the enlightenment of the demonic realm. The fourth anima's Tao manifestation, Immortal Fruit Tree, seemed to connect the 9 heavens and 10 earths. Its branches, leaves, and tentacles spread out endlessly, condensing and blooming the myriad heavenly Tao laws. The fifth anima emitted endless vitality, causing all things in the world to come back to life, old trees to sprout, and old trees to bloom. Old cultivators once again bloomed with vitality. The sixth anima's spirit spring sea was like a vast ocean, providing boundless spiritual energy support to all the cultivators present. 10 years, under the 100 times faster space-time laws, was equivalent to 1,000 years of preaching. Chen Hao could be said to have put in a lot of effort. His true body and his 5 avatars, apart from the second anima, were exhausted to the point of hovering between life and death. They had no choice but to stop countless times to recover themselves. There were simply too many cultivators and too many powerhouses. If Yi Lan and the 9 rulers hadn't arranged for other supplies, Chen Hao wouldn't have been able to last for long. The only exception was the second anima. The more the power of faith was released, the more vigorous it became, and the more powerful it became. Without a doubt, the heaven-defying strength that killing God Chen Hao displayed had won over more and more believers in the process of preaching the Tao. The special nature of the power of faith was that the feedback it received was far greater than the release of the power of faith. After 10 years of teaching with the help of Yi Lan and the masters of the 9 galaxies, Chen Hao condensed countless runes and Tao marks in the number 1 Academy of Ancient Chaos, which was also the highest level of the Ancient Chaos Sacred Hall. It was the symbol of the first cultivation sacred ground after the unification of the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand Worlds, and also the highest sacred ground. Yi Lan and the other 8 rulers also integrated their own supreme Tao laws. But the true core was still Chen Hao's Daoyuo Jinxian's Tao marks. All runes, heaven and earth energy, as well as the mysteries of space-time and space and time, they all revolved around the Tao marks left behind by Chen Hao. This was something that even Yi Lan and the masters of the 9 galaxies did not expect. Was the Tao's origin, the Tao's profound mysteries, the Tao's mysteries, Ants contains profound mysteries, and the origin Tao source the Tao. This origin had already surpassed them. Especially the Tao mark pressure that Chen Hao condensed, it was different from the fish given to fish. Cultivators could only comprehend the Tao marks of their absolute arts to improve themselves. Chen Hao, on the other hand, taught him to fish. What Chen Hao condensed almost didn't contain any fixed divine ability laws. It was completely based on the great Tao outline that he had comprehended as a blueprint, fusing the most fundamental understanding of the heavenly Tao into it. To a cultivator, this was a fundamental benefit. It definitely wasn't as simple as comprehending a divine ability or supreme art. This was a fundamental difference. Chen Hao's terrifying performance completely dispelled the doubts of the rulers of the 9 galaxies. It also made them truly acknowledge the existence of the future ruler of the universe, the god of slaughter, Chen Hao. In the blink of an eye, another 10 years had passed. On this day, in the ancient Chaos Temple, Chen Hao, Chen Shui, and the other girls gathered in a circle, kneading a naked baby. This was Chen Hao's 7th anima. The 7th anima was different from the 2nd anima to the 6th anima. This was a true rebirth. But it was also different from Si Xian's absolute rebirth. This was because Chen Hao had completely sealed his memories in the 7th anima. As his realm increased, they would slowly awaken. Chen Hao pushed Long Ting's hand away and protected the 7th anima, who was still a baby. "Wives, you're harming a baby." Little sister Ting, you dare to pinch my dick?" Okay, let's stop messing around." "How? What do you plan to do?" Chen Hao said, "What else can I do? I'll let him grow under your supervision. My memories are completely sealed in his soul origin. Only cultivation is his own business. As his realm increases, his memories will awaken a bit and he'll become the same realm as my true body. Won't this affect your strength after the fusion?" Hu Mainyang frowned. "The 9 lives profound art is just a divine ability. Do you think I'll rely on it to reach the peak of the great Tao? Besides, it won't affect anything," Chen Hao said. Chen Shui thought for a moment and said, "Then let teacher Si Xian look after us while we're in the 10-direction territory." The heavenly Tao law had undergone an astonishing change after the unification of the ancient chaos boundless world. According to Yi Lan, the ancient chaos boundless world only lacked in foundation and time compared to the great world of Xiandi. The supreme realm of the heavenly Tao law was not inferior to the great world of Xiandi. Similarly, the current 10-direction territory was not inferior to the great world of Xiandi. "Give it to her?" Chen Hao was slightly taken aback and immediately said, "What? It seems you're still worried. It's good to let her supervise for a while." At this moment, There was a fluctuation in space, and Yi Lan and Si Xian appeared in front of everyone. Speak of the devil. Don't give it to me. Master should supervise her. I'm not interested in supervising a little brat. What left Chen Hao speechless and the girls embarrassed was that Si Xian, who had just arrived, directly said such a thing. The corners of Yi Lan's mouth carried a trace of a smile as he directly said, "This old man will supervise." "How, are you ready?" "Sort of." Chen Hao frowned slightly and looked at the girls with a trace of reluctance in his eyes. However, no matter how reluctant he was, he still had to leave eventually. The 10-direction territory had indeed become stronger and might not be inferior to the existence of the Hongmeng territory in the great world of Xiandi. However, Yi Lan still insisted that Chen Hao step into the great world of Xiandi as soon as possible. Firstly, Chen Wuliang, Han Mei, and Xue Mei had already entered. Yi Lan knew very well what they would encounter when they arrived there. However, he could not stop them. There were some things that they would only understand and feel at ease after experiencing it themselves. Secondly, the great world of Xiandi gathered countless geniuses from the great thousand domains. That was the place that suited Chen Hao. The sooner he entered, the more beneficial it would be for Chen Hao's growth. Chen Hao's strength in the Daoist Golden Wonderland was far from the limit. Yi Lan was sure that Chen Hao still had a lot of room for improvement in the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Under such circumstances, the 10-direction territory could never satisfy Chen Hao's needs. The path of a powerhouse could not be reached by being as lonely as snow in the river. One had to go to the sea and constantly move forward in the collision between powerhouses. Chapter 1154. Then let's go. Si Xian will send you into the galaxy tunnel. Chen Hao nodded. He was in the Daoist Golden Wonderland, so he couldn't enter the galaxy tunnel by himself. Once he stepped through the entrance of the 10 Directions domain, he would directly enter the 10 Directions domain. Therefore, he could only let the cultivators of the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm into the galaxy tunnel. Si Xian only needed to take Chen Hao into her mind and let him out after entering the galaxy tunnel that led to the great world of Xiandi. "Hao, don't worry, we will wait for you to come back. It's only been less than 100,000 years. Maybe when you come back, we won't even step out of the 10 Directions domain." Chen Xue, who was wearing a blue dress, said softly with a smile on her beautiful face. The girls also smiled at Chen Hao, but, "Wait for me to come back. Let's go." Chen Hao couldn't bear to watch anymore. He didn't want the girls to be too tired. Would he be relieved if they sent him off with a strong smile? Therefore, Chen Hao didn't say anything else. He turned into a stream of light and stepped into the gate of time that Yi Lan had already opened. Si Xian followed closely behind. The girls only retracted their gazes when the gate of time disappeared. Their smiles were replaced by tears and reluctance. Chi. Yi Lan didn't hesitate. The moment the gate of time closed, she suddenly attacked. The 10 tokens combined into one and released endless immortal light, completely erasing the aura of Chen Hao's imprint in the greater 1,000 primordial realms. Even the origin link between Chen Hao's 7th life and it was temporarily severed. Walking the Great Tao alone is destined to endure loneliness that ordinary people can't bear. You are all the hope of the primordial realms. For now, Chi. Cutting off the aura of Chen Hao's imprint in the primordial realms was inevitable. However, Chen Hao and the girls didn't expect Yi Lan to act so decisively as soon as Chen Hao left. The void suddenly shook, and the masters of the 9 galaxies appeared in front of Yi Lan. Reincarnate. Yi Lan finally finished the rest of his sentence. At this moment, the ancient chaos ruler's tokens suddenly released a boundless profound aura under the combined efforts of Yi Lan and the 9 galaxy rulers. Beams of resplendent and profound immortal light directly sealed away the astonished women. Soon after, all the women fell into a daze. Endless profound runes flickered unceasingly. Yi Lan and the 9 controllers' beards and hair stood on end. They were all raised to the limit. They began to display the unparalleled might that only the controllers of ancient chaos had after unifying ancient chaos. It was just that the 10 of them had to work together to control it. Endless cycle of reincarnation. Yilan's idea was simple. He wanted the girls to grow together with Chen Hao's seventh anima. Thank you, Teacher Xian. Goodbye. After entering the Milky Way tunnel leading to the great world of Xiandi, Chen Hao cupped his fists and said to Xian when Xian released Chen Hao from the macro world in her mind. Goodbye? I didn't say I wouldn't go to the great world of Xiandi, Great Controller Chen. Xian smiled faintly and glared at Chen Hao, then looked at the endless Milky Way tunnel in front of her. You're going too? Of course I'm going. Ancient Chaos's heavenly laws have become much stronger, and Master said it's comparable to the great world of Xiandi. However, within the same realm, you know better than me the feeling of loneliness. If you want to improve even more, the only way is to enter the great world of Xiandi. Xian said. Chen Hao frowned slightly. Don't worry, I won't drag you down. You enter your Hongming domain, and I'll train myself. We won't affect each other, Xian said. Chen Hao couldn't help but ask, Senior Yilan asked you to send me in? You didn't act on your own, did you? How is that possible? I've discussed it with Master, Xian said hurriedly. You haven't lied before, have you, Teacher Xian? Of course not. I've never lied. Are you suspecting me? That's right. It's precisely because you haven't lied before that your performance this time is too fake. I advise you to go back. It's still not too late. What are you talking about? Xian's face immediately turned red. When you said you wanted to follow us to the great world of Xiandi, Senior Yilan didn't object. That's because you've indeed reached your limit in Ancient Chaos. There's no room for improvement. However, Ancient Chaos has been unified, and the heavenly Tao has changed. You still have a lot of room for improvement. Even if Senior Yilan wants you to go, it'll only be when your strength reaches the limit of your Hongmeng domain. Don't worry about me. You're the one who said that a general can't obey orders when he's outside. There's one more thing. Senior Yilan has already told me the basic situation of the great world of Xiandi. With your strength in the Grandmist Supremacy realm, you might be first-rate in the great world of Xiandi, but your life force. Do you really need to go now? Chen Hao, what do you mean? I've already decided. And I've already entered. I don't need you to care about me. Why are you poking your nose into other people's business? All right, do as you wish. Chen Hao shook his head and didn't say anything else. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes. However, his heart couldn't calm down. It wasn't because of Xian, but because of his departure. In the end, Chen Hao still couldn't accomplish the same thing. Leaving behind the seventh anima gave the women a bit of mental comfort. However, Chen Hao was well aware that because of the special nature of the 9 animus arcane art, his true self was the only thing that mattered to them. 100,000 years, Chen Hao murmured in his heart. The time he agreed to with Yilan was the time his father, mother, and Master Han Mei had agreed to. When his father and the others left for about 100,000 years, Yilan would rush over to pick them up in advance. 100,000 years was indeed nothing in the long life of a cultivator, but for the young Chen Hao, it was quite long. Moreover, Chen Hao knew that there was still a huge crisis in ancient chaos that might erupt in another few tens of thousands of years. But Yilan still proposed 100,000 years. Chen Hao knew that it came from Yilan's self-confidence. When Chen Hao returned to the Ancient Chaos Great Thousand World from the Ancient Chaos Great Desolation domain, what changed was not only the supreme heavenly Tao of Ancient Chaos, but also Yilan. It wasn't Yilan's strength. With Chen Hao's current realm, no matter how strong his perception was, the feeling Yilan gave him could only be described as unfathomable. Chen Hao couldn't tell whether his strength had increased or not, but Yilan gave him a feeling of being reborn. And Yilan also clearly told Chen Hao that the seal that had imprisoned him for hundreds of millions of years had been released. What did that mean? Yilan was previously imprisoned by a terrifying seal and was the #1 expert in ancient Chaos City who was on par with the Shao family's ancestor. Now that the seal was released, how strong would he be? Third update, begging for monthly votes. Chapter 1155. Xiao Hui Hao. Where is he going? He's going to the great world of Xiandi, a space stronger than the ancient chaos boundless universe. Mom, don't worry, he'll come back. He left the seventh life behind. With me around, he'll be fine, I know. But when he comes back, will he really fuse? Probably. When he steps into the peak of the late Grand Mist Supremacy realm, he'll probably fuse. Mom, don't think too much. This time, he asked the second life to come back and accompany you and Dad, as well as them for 10 years. He's not a heartless person. After the fusion, this memory will always exist. Look, the planet he's fighting for our Sky River is the best proof. It's just that he's under too much pressure and doesn't have time for himself. Oh, on a planet in the ancient chaos boundless universe, Chen Hao's mother in the Sky River sector and the little nurse, Lu Hui, sat on a sofa on the rooftop of a building. They stared at the endless void and talked softly. Lu Hui, the soul of all creation, had stayed in the ancient chaos boundless universe with the other girls under Yi Lan's suggestion. She was the reincarnation of the immortal emperor and the soul of all creation. Although it couldn't restrict her growth in Chen Hao's mind, it still affected her. Now that the ancient chaos boundless universe had become stronger, leaving the little nurse behind would allow Chen Hao to truly have no distractions. In fact, it was just temporarily letting go of everything. This time, Lu Hui didn't insist. However, she didn't show her face, nor did she stay with the other girls. Instead, she chose to stay with Chen Hao's parents in the Sky River sector, as well as her family and friends. The Milky Way galaxy was her foundation. Although Nurse Lu Hui did not know what would happen after her awakening, she knew that one day, the silent space of the Milky Way sector would once again become a real great thousand world following her awakening. At that time, all living things would be revived, and the ancient powers that had disappeared would be revived. It would be the beginning of a new era for the great thousand world of the Milky Way. This was something that the young nurse was looking forward to. But no one knew that the nurse's expectation was that in the future, she would be fully awakened and be able to command the countless awakened mighty people in the heavenly river. She just wanted to become more important in Chen Hao's heart and become the real, first female lead. She wanted to become an indispensable existence and the strongest assistant to Chen Hao. Phew, Chen Hao heaved a long sigh. You don't have to do this, do you? Do I give you such a headache? What Chen Hao didn't expect was that Si Xian actually looked at him with a frown after hearing his sigh. You've overestimated your worth. Let me give you one last piece of advice. You should go back by yourself. Otherwise, Senior Yilan will also capture you back. Chen Hao said helplessly. Chen Hao had no way to deal with Si Xian and her third anima, Xiaofeng. Whether it was the weaker Xiaofeng or Si Xian, their statuses suppressed him to death. The fake identity of the limitless ancestor was his former master, but his real identity was the immortal legend that even his father called master. What could Chen Hao do? First, it was Xiaofeng, now it was Si Xian, not to mention anything else. Just the fact that Si Xian followed him unwisely at this time was enough to explain the problem. It was just that Si Xian didn't think so. That's impossible. First, I've already decided. Even if Master knows, he will agree with my choice. Second, it's impossible for Master to capture me in time, Si Xian said confidently. Senior Yilan's speed can't catch up with you? Chen Hao asked rhetorically. In the galaxy tunnel, as long as a cultivator chose a direction, their teleportation speed would be amazing, but it was the same for any cultivator. If Yi Lan came in with his unfathomable strength, there would be no problem for him to catch up with him. What's more, he and Si Xian were completely at the mercy of the galaxy tunnel. They didn't use their own strength to speed up at all. Master can't care. By the time he realizes that I've left, we'll be almost at the great world of Xiandi. What do you mean? Chen Hao asked with a frown. There's no harm in telling you. Master and the masters of the 9 galaxies have already joined forces to cast a spell on your women when we entered the gate of time and space to go to the 10th direction territory. It will take at least half a year to complete. Cast a spell? Cast a fucking reincarnation spell. What? Don't worry, Master and the masters of the 9 galaxies have joined forces to activate the Ancient Chaos Controller's token, which can control all lives in Ancient Chaos. Your departure will definitely have a great impact on them. The best solution is to let them enter the reincarnation cycle. Moreover, previously, because they wanted to catch up with your footsteps, their crazy cultivation and advancement were more or less a little extreme. It's good for them to be reincarnated once or several times. Moreover, they can grow together with your 7 lives. Xian said. Chen Hao frowned and pondered for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's right. It seems that you're determined to go?" "Of course. Then it's up to you. When the time comes, don't be ravaged and go back crying. You should worry about Shui Mei, Han Mei, and Wu Yang. Although my life aura is old, I have no problem protecting myself in the same realm. The great world of Xiandi's rules are very strict. At most, those of a higher realm can look down on me, but they can't do anything to me. Moreover, I'm only in the Grand Mist Supremacy realm. Before I reach cutting Dao, I'm still very malleable. What about them?" "They've all reached cutting Dao," Xian said very calmly. Moreover, she had indeed spoken to the bottom of Chen Hao's heart. Without a doubt, this was what he was most worried about. Previously, he only knew that the great world of Xiandi was powerful, but now, after receiving the specific information about the great world of Xiandi from Yilan, Chen Hao knew that even his father, who dominated ancient chaos, would probably be bullied there and would have to swallow his anger. This was all cutting Dao's fault. "When we enter the great world of Xiandi, let's first find my parents and Master Han Mei." Chen Hao hesitated for a moment, then looked at Xian and said, "Us?" Xian was slightly taken aback. She wanted to say something, but Chen Hao immediately closed his eyes. A light flashed between his brows, and the 2nd to 6th onimus escaped from the great world in his mind. Xian glared at Chen Hao, then looked at the excited clone. In the end, she did not say anything, but the corners of her mouth could not help but curl into a faint, pleased smile. "Hello, Master Xian. It's a very satisfying thing to have a great beauty like you by my side on this lonely journey." The Dao manifestation Immortal fruit tree transformed into Chen Hao's original appearance. Dao laws surged around it, and the corners of its mouth curled into a smile as it ran in front of Xian. "Beauty, didn't you just say that your life aura is old? Although I can't prevent your life aura from aging, I can make you as full of youthful vigor as a beautiful girl. Do you want it?" The Tree of Life, which had also transformed into Chen Hao, ran in front of Xian and said, "Fourth update, begging for monthly votes." Chapter 1156. Are you serious? Xian asked with a hint of anticipation. After entering the great world of Xiandi, the life aura that had lived for tens of millions of years would undoubtedly have a huge impact on her potential. Although the Tree of Life could not change her age, if it could make her life aura as vigorous as a young person's, it would undoubtedly increase her potential. Although I like handsome men, I also like beautiful women. Why would I lie to us? At this moment, 5 dazzling celestial lights suddenly shot out of Chen Hao's glabella and covered the heads of his 5 clones, causing the Tree of Life to stop talking abruptly. "Scram at once. If you say another word, I'll seal you immediately." Main body, scram. "Fine, I'll go." Chi 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 chi. The 5 clones could feel the irresistible divine consciousness that was about to suck them back into the mind of the main body at any time. They turned into streaks of light and quickly flew in the direction of the Milky Way tunnel. "Chen Hao, why are you doing this?" "The Tree of Life wants to help me." Xian, whose interest was piqued by the Tree of Life, said frankly. "It wants to merge yin and yang with you. Are you going to do it or not?" Chen Hao glared at Xian. Cough cough. Xian was suddenly choked by Chen Hao's words. Soon after, when Xian thought of something, her pretty face became even redder. Wasn't the Tree of Life's thoughts the same as Chen Hao's thoughts? Of course, this was very far-fetched. After all, the Tree of Life now had its own consciousness. Just like Xiaofeng, Xian could not decide Xiaofeng's thoughts. At least for now, it had nothing to do with her. After a moment of silence, Chen Hao felt that his words were a little too direct. After hesitating for a moment, he said, You can enter the great world in my mind. The origin energy of the tree of life is there. Perhaps it will be of some help to you. No need. It's not a big deal that I'm old. Anyway, I'm just going there to take a look. Xian said. Up to you. Chen Hao didn't say anything else. He directly severed all distracting thoughts, and his mind spread out, fusing into the ancient and profound aura of the stellar river tunnel. Previously, when he returned to ancient chaos from the Star River Tunnel with Ito Tai, Chen Hao used the ancient and mysterious aura of the Star River Tunnel to pass the time, but he could only understand the surface. Although Chen Hao's cultivation base was still in the Daoist Golden Wonderland, his comprehension of the space-time laws was no longer the same as before. This also made Chen Hao feel even more shocked by the ancient starry sky road. However, Xian secretly stared at Chen Hao. She was annoyed in her heart. She was just saying those words out of anger. How could he not be reluctant at all? Would he die if he continued to be reluctant? He actually entered the state of enlightenment so quickly, Xian didn't know whether to describe Chen Hao as a genius, heartless, or inhumane. However, it was impossible for her to take the initiative to ask to enter again. Slowly calming her mind, Xian also entered the state of cultivation. Under the constantly changing space-time laws, Chen Hao and Xian didn't know how much time had passed. They were quietly comprehending and moving forward along with the transmission of the stellar river tunnel itself. A single man and a single woman's journey through the ancient starry sky road. If it were one of the women, Chen Hao and Xian, except for the conversation at the beginning, did not say a word during the subsequent journey. Half a year, in the blink of an eye, the top palace of the ancient chaos world was filled with endless mysterious runes, immortal light lingered, Dao laws pervaded, and pure and majestic world energy filled the entire space, constantly merging into the bodies of Qin Shui, Hu Meinyang, and the other women. At this moment, the appearance of the women had been completely blurred, as if they had transformed into a mass of light, and as time passed, they became brighter and brighter. Chi. Finally, on the 8th month, Qin Shui, Heli and Wuzi, Hu Meinyang, Longtime, and the others turned into streaks of light one after another. They directly penetrated the barrier of the ancient chaos temple and merged into the world of the ancient chaos Great Thousand World. Phew, we finally succeeded. Brother Yi, the Master's companions are really not simple. Fortunately, you specifically told us to prepare well, otherwise we would have to give up halfway. Yes, especially Qin Shui, Hu Meinyang, Heli and Wuzi, and Long Ting, the energy they consume is really terrifying. I feel that any one of the four of them will be more terrifying than us when they grow up. Only Brother Yi should be stronger than them. The Masters of the 9 Galaxies looked a little dispirited, but there was a touch of surprise in their eyes as they spoke one after another. They will be stronger in the future, perhaps completely beyond our expectations. How? The Master can even subdue the spirits of all beings reincarnated by the Immortal Emperor, so how can his companions be simple? Even if they used to be very bad, you can see the current situation. Yi Lan, who was speaking, suddenly frowned slightly, and his expression changed slightly. Brother Yi, what's wrong? Everyone was slightly puzzled. This girl? Xian went with how? This kid is really... Back then he was still stubborn. Now that he knows it's not the best time to go to the great world of Xiandi, he actually... It's been 8 months. Forget it, let her be. Yi Lan shook his head and said, Everyone, let's work together to activate the token and cut off the aura Xian left here. Chen Hao. Got it. It felt like 10 years had passed, but how much time had actually passed could not be measured by the changing space-time laws. It was also at this moment that Xian took the lead to break the silence and shouted. Chen Hao slowly opened his eyes and responded directly. Me grabbing you? Or you entering my mind world? Chen Hao looked at Xian and said. Xian hesitated for a moment, then directly stretched out her jade-like hand to Chen Hao, but she did not approach Chen Hao. Chen Hao was slightly stunned, then suddenly floated to Xian's side and reached out to hold her hand. You seem a little excited? This handshake was the first intimate contact between the two. Whether it was Chen Hao or Xian, it was impossible to say that they did not feel anything. The legendary Xian, especially her influence in the vast universe galaxy and the temperament brought about by her tens of millions of years of heritage, had a fatal attraction to any man. Chen Hao had to admit this when he first saw Xian. Coupled with the matter of Xiaofeng, it was impossible for the two to be open and aboveboard. At this moment, when they shook hands, Chen Hao had to admit that the legendary Xian's hand was definitely the most beautiful hand among all the women. Moreover, it felt good to the touch, making Chen Hao feel a little electric shock. However, Chen Hao had experienced it before, so his control was much better. Xian, on the other hand, was much worse. She thought that she could remain calm, but when she held his hand, there was almost no suspense at all. Her delicate body trembled, and she suppressed the electric shock that came from having intimate contact with a man. She pretended to be calm, but her slightly trembling hands betrayed her completely. Chen Hao's shameless greeting made her face instantly turn red. 5th update, seeking monthly votes. Chapter 1157. What are you talking about? I'm just not used to it. Xian glared at Chen Hao before turning her face away. Chen Hao smiled and did not continue to tease her. The Star River Tunnel could be opened from the inside to the outside. A supreme Hongmeng who had mastered some space Upanishad could open a gap. Although it could only be maintained for a moment, it was enough time for a cultivator to jump out of the Star River Tunnel. The speed of the automatic transmission in the Star River Tunnel did not affect the cultivator too much. However, if a cultivator broke through the tunnel's barrier and entered the chaotic space, even if it was just a moment, it could be 10 billion or 100 billion miles away in the chaotic space. Since Chen Hao and Xian were together, they naturally had to leave at the same time. Otherwise, after entering the chaotic space, they would have to spend a lot of time to meet up. This was the reason why Chen Hao and Xian were together. It was also the reason why Yi Lan had told them to step into the chaotic space when the Star River Tunnel suddenly widened. Sizzle. In the ancient and mysterious aura, the two of them held hands and gazed ahead as they moved forward quickly. Their Daoist robes fluttered in the wind, and their long hair fluttered in the wind. A man and a woman walking side by side. From afar, they looked like a pair of immortals. We're here. Xian's aura suddenly soared. Me. Sizzle. The moment the Star River Tunnel suddenly widened, Chen Hao made his move. With a point of his finger, a crystal light that contained the space Upanishad penetrated the barrier of the Star River Tunnel. Buzz. Xian felt her hand tighten as she was pulled by Chen Hao into the barrier. Sizzle. Sizzle. The majestic and terrifying space Upanishad almost completely twisted their bodies at this moment. Before they could react, they were stuck close to each other and were wantonly stretched, twisted, and entangled. Fortunately, their bodies had reached the standard. Such twisting and changing could not hurt them at all. Especially for Chen Hao, he did not feel any pressure at all. The only feeling he had was a little bit of romance and the terror of the Star River Tunnel. Buzz. After passing through the space Upanishad barrier for a short time, the two of them appeared in the chaotic space. Xian stretched her body and separated from Chen Hao. What a powerful space-time profound. Chen Hao was shocked. He released his soul perception, but he couldn't sense any trace of the Star River Tunnel's aura. I felt as if the laws of space and time had changed millions of times in that instant. It's truly miraculous. Just how strong must one's cultivation base be to be able to completely fuse the different laws of space and time together? Xian was also shocked. Chen Hao's lack of reaction to the charm just now undoubtedly made her feel a little more at ease. Chen Hao frowned and said, "It's at least at the Immortal Emperor level. Different space-time laws are mixed together, forming a galaxy tunnel on the inside and a chaotic space on the outside. This chaotic space can't be a galaxy tunnel, but we can't sense it, right? Who knows? Only when I reach a certain level will I be able to see through it. All right, let's go." Chen Hao's figure flashed and appeared in front of Xian. He directly grabbed her hand as if he was doing something very natural. Without asking for Xianxia's opinion, he directly grabbed her hand and quickly traveled through the chaotic space. Xianxia was stunned for a moment. She wanted to pull away, but when she sensed the speed of Chen Hao's teleportation technique, which was integrated into the laws of space and time, she did not resist in the end. If she let go, there was no way she could keep up with Chen Hao's speed. Chen Hao's attitude made Xianxia feel that she was making a fuss over nothing. Wasn't it just holding hands? In the blink of an eye, the two of them had traveled through the chaotic space for a month. Chen Hao, could we be going in the wrong direction? It's been a month, and we still haven't sensed the aura of the great world of Xiandi. Should we change direction? According to Yilan, when the Milky Way tunnel suddenly widened and stepped into the chaotic space, they had to choose a direction based on the position they appeared in and advance for half a month or a month. If they still could not sense the aura of the barrier of the great world of Xiandi, they should use the position they appeared in the chaotic space as the center. With the current position as the radius, they should move forward in a circle. If they could not find it after a full circle, they should expand the radius until they found it. They must not move forward in one direction. If they did, they might get lost in the chaotic space and waste time. Chen Hao's speed was very fast. They had not encountered it after flying for a month. In Xianxia's opinion, they should be going in the wrong direction. No, the direction is right. We should be arriving soon, Chen Hao said with great certainty. You can sense it? I should be able to. What do you mean by should be? If we can, we can. If we can't, we can't. I feel that it's in this direction. But I can't sense it. It's intuition. Chen Hao frowned. Chen Hao could not describe this feeling. He could not sense anything, but he was very sure that the barrier of the great world of Xiandi was right in front of them. Chen Hao had this feeling the moment he stepped into the chaotic space from the Milky Way tunnel. Now, as they continued to move forward, the feeling became more and more obvious. Chen Hao did not know why he had this feeling. Intuition? Do you think we're going back to the ancient chaos? Now that you mention it, could it be that I really have something to do with the great world of Xiandi? Chen Hao, who was talking, suddenly thought of something. He cursed and said, "My 5 doppelgangers should have entered. I knew it." Xian was slightly stunned, and then she blushed with shame. Obviously, both she and Chen Hao had forgotten that the 5 doppelgangers had left in advance. Sure enough, after the two of them moved forward for another 3 days, the chaotic space became calmer and calmer. It was obvious that they were close to the barrier of the vast thousand world. Chen Hao and Xian became slightly excited. A day later, Chen Hao suddenly made his move and tore apart the spatial barrier. Buzz. Immediately, the two of them appeared in the great world of Xiandi. The great world of Xiandi. This is the great world of Xiandi. As she breathed in the fresh air and sensed the extremely dense spirit energy of the heavens and the earth and the vast and majestic laws of the heaven Tao in the world, Xian's beautiful face was filled with excitement, and she couldn't help but tighten her grip on Chen Hao's hand. Buzz. Chen Hao's aura suddenly shook, and his appearance and aura completely changed. Even his body expanded. He, who was extraordinarily handsome and slender, directly turned into a chubby, kind-looking little fatty. You've reached the ultimate level of the Great Change technique? How is it? Can you feel it? I can't feel it. You're really abnormal. You've cultivated the Great Teleportation technique to the ultimate level, and the Great Change technique to such a level. But you've become like this. Xian stared at Chen Hao's chubby face with a strange expression. She had the urge to laugh. I'm too handsome. It's better to keep a low profile. If you don't want to get into trouble, you'd better disguise yourself as a fat woman. Chapter 1158. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Xian looked at Chen Hao speechlessly. After a few seconds, she said, "You've cultivated the Great Change technique to the ultimate transformation. I don't have that ability. No matter how I disguise myself, I'll be exposed once I fight. I might as well not disguise myself. Besides, it's fine to disgust others, But why should I disgust myself like this? Buzz. As Xian spoke, the aura around her suddenly changed. Fuck! Chen Hao, who was staring at Xian, knew that Xian was disguising herself, but her disguise made Chen Hao's balls hurt. It was obviously a prank. With a swish, Chen Hao quickly retreated. Please, you don't have to disguise yourself as a fat woman. Do you have to be so disgusting? Look at me, although I've become a little fatty, am I not quite cute? Chen Hao said while resisting the urge to vomit. Buzz. Is there a difference? Xian's aura shook again, and she immediately changed into her original appearance. She stared at Chen Hao. Everyone has a love for beauty. Men were not willing to disguise themselves as ugly, let alone women. It was only possible when they had no other choice. But now, it was obviously not to that extent. Xian naturally would not listen to Chen Hao's suggestion and disguise herself as a fat woman. 1 month later. Supreme Heavenly Law. Our vast thousand worlds may not be worse than the great world of Xiandi, but the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and the aura of the heavenly law are far too weak. Xian said. This is normal. The great world of Xiandi is open to all the vast thousand worlds and has gathered the top geniuses of countless vast thousand worlds. Naturally, it has gathered thousands of fortunes. Coupled with the accumulation of countless years, its foundation is simply not comparable to the vast thousand worlds that we have just unified. The same supreme heavenly law, but we can sense it more clearly here, and it's easier for us to comprehend. Chen Hao said softly. Yes, that's why I've come to the right place. That's hard to say. Why is it hard to say? This was already very obvious. Even if it was purely cultivation, it would be faster than cultivating in ancient chaos. You're young and people look at you in a new light wherever you go, but what about me? 3 lives, endless cycles of reincarnation. They all started from the lowest level with nothing to rely on. They cultivated step by step, spending tens of millions of years. And it was all for you. Cough cough. You can't say that. I just happen to be the person in Senior Yi Lan's divination. Isn't your cultivation method just to increase your own strength? Trying to shirk responsibility, little fatty? Fuck, you're really cute like this. I don't feel any pressure. Xian reached out to pinch Chen Hao's chubby face, but her hand was slapped away by Chen Hao. Master does indeed have a reason for wanting me to increase my strength, but do you think that kind of cultivation is really necessary? If Master had given me a unique cultivation environment, I could have fused 3 lives at a very young age. At that time, I would have come to the great world of Xiandi. With my aptitude, what could I have obtained? What would I be like now, tens of millions of years later? Xian asked in succession. From what you're saying, you want me to bring in? To Chen Hao's expression suddenly changed. A golden light flashed between his eyebrows and wrapped around Xian. Xian didn't resist at all and was directly integrated into Chen Hao's mental world. This wasn't the first time. Xian knew what she was about to face. In the past month, the two of them had met 7 times. This was the 8th time. The moment Xian was sucked into the mental world, Chen Hao's body shook. His fat buttocks seemed to swing back and forth 1,000 times in an instant. With a buzz, he disappeared on the spot. Clearly, he had pushed the great teleportation art to the extreme. Roar! It was also at this moment that a huge monster tore through the void. A terrifying pressure instantly filled the entire space. Its huge body radiated crystal light in all directions, covering the sky and the sun. Chi. Streaks of terrifying lightning suddenly spurted out from the mouth of the huge monster. The space within tens of millions of miles was annihilated. Mountains collapsed and the earth caved in. Buzz. Chen Hao's body shook and suddenly appeared tens of millions of miles away. In a flash, he disappeared again. Roar! Rumble! In the void, the huge monster that was tens of thousands of feet long and hundreds of feet thick suddenly let out a resonant angry roar. Little fatty, you can't run away. Obediently surrender to this Dragon King and offer your blood essence to spare your life. Otherwise, when this Dragon King catches you, there will be nothing left of you. Chi 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 chi. The huge monster roared and chased in the direction of Chen Hao. It spoke in human language and revealed a domineering aura. With a long roar, endless lightning bloomed. In an instant, it arrived at the place where Chen Hao's body flashed. This huge monster was the primordial divine dragon that had gone extinct in the ancient chaos world. It was a thunder dragon with the lightning attribute. Damn you, Thunder Dragon King, spare me. My body is not even enough to fill the gap between your teeth. Do you really care about that little bit of blood essence? You are at the fourth heaven of the cutting Dao stage. Why do you have to chase after me, a small Daoist Jinxian? If others see you, where will you put your face? Chen Hao pushed the great teleportation technique to the limit. Roar, 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 roar. Face? Little fatty, this Dragon King's mission is to kill you outsiders who sneak in. It's useless to say anything. This Dragon King has taken a fancy to your immortal blood essence. Obediently give it to this Dragon King. Otherwise, there will be nothing left of you. Fuck. Damn you, do you think I'm stupid? If you have the ability, then catch me. If you can't, then agree to my request. Let's mind our own business and go our separate ways. You don't trust this Dragon King? Little fatty, I promise that I won't reveal your secret. I also don't want your immortal treasure. I only want your blood essence. Fuck off. I'd be a fool to believe you. You black-hearted guy. Damn it, this Dragon King is a man of his word. Moreover, this Dragon King can directly recommend you to enter a first-rate academy. Damn it, how many times do I have to say it before you understand? Don't waste your breath. Either you catch me and I'll let you punish me, or you do as I say. Look, the city is in sight. Roar! The Thunder Dragon King was shocked when he heard Chen Hao's words. He immediately let out an even more terrifying roar. Endless lightning covered the sky and rushed toward Chen Hao. You won't cry until you see the coffin. Do you think this will work? Buzz. Chen Hao's voice floated in the void. His fat but suddenly trembled thousands of times. The great teleportation technique suddenly increased by several times. What? Little fatty, stop right there. I promise you. There's no need to stop. The agreement is in effect. Who knows if you'll eat me in one bite? Chen Hao was as fast as lightning. In a flash, he crossed hundreds of millions of miles. Although he spoke casually, his fat body trembled and he broke out in cold sweat. It could be said that he had pushed his strength to the limit. If he was a bit slower, he believed that he and Xian would become food on the treacherous Thunder Dragon King's plate. Xian, who was in Chen Hao's mind world, also broke out in cold sweat. Her pretty face was pale. Little fatty, The Thunder Dragon King was furious, but when he saw the little fatty who could cross hundreds of millions of miles with a shake of his butt, he finally shut up. The Thunder Dragon King was a fourth-stage Dao severing cultivator, one of the guardians of true martial city on planet Gargantuan. Chen Hao and Xian tore through the chaotic space barrier and appeared in the wilderness of true martial city. They happened to meet the Thunder Dragon King. Any cultivator who snuck in from the chaotic space and was lower than the third heaven of cutting Dao true immortal had to pass the city guardian's test to qualify to enter the city. The fourth heaven of cutting Dao true immortal could enter directly. The test was very simple. As long as the snuck-in cultivator's battle strength reached the average level of the great world of Xiandi, they would be allowed to enter regardless of their origin. Chen Hao and Xian already knew this when they came to the great world of Xiandi. With Chen Hao and Xian's battle strength, they should have passed the Thunder Dragon King's test smoothly. However, Chen Hao and Xian didn't expect that the Thunder Dragon King would covet Chen Hao's bloodline aura and have evil intentions. If Chen Hao hadn't cultivated the great teleportation technique to the ultimate level and had soul power, mental state, and willpower that exceeded his cultivation level, he would have been eaten by the Thunder Dragon King. This was the fourth heaven of cutting Dao true immortal. How strong was that pressure? The strongest pressure was released, and Xian was directly imprisoned. She couldn't even move. However, what was Chen Hao's strongest point? Enduring pressure. Chen Hao, who had experienced the Immortal Sutra Sacred Land and the ancient Chaos Domain, had the ability to endure pressure that exceeded his cultivation level by countless times. When the Thunder Dragon King released his pressure and thought that he had defeated Chen Hao, who seemed to be imprisoned, suddenly went crazy. He took Xian into his mind world and activated the great teleportation technique to the limit to escape. This time, while the Thunder Dragon King was shocked, he also obtained Chen Hao's secret. This little fatty from the Daoist Golden Wonderland actually had a great world in his mind. Apart from having an extremely powerful true immortal magic treasure, what else could he have? The Thunder Dragon King became even more excited. He believed that he still had the ability to blackmail Chen Hao. This kind of thing definitely went against the highest law set by the ruling class of the great world of Xiandi. However, as a guardian who specialized in testing illegal immigrants, when he encountered something that moved his heart, he often did this kind of thing that went against the law. He would directly blackmail it and no one would notice. However, what the Thunder Dragon King didn't expect was that he, a fourth heaven-cutting Dao true immortal expert, had chased him for a month and got close to him 8 times. However, he still let him escape. Moreover, it was to the point of no return. The city was in sight. In the Thunder Dragon King's opinion, with this little fatty's shocking talent, he would definitely become a character in the great world of Xiandi in the future. His potential was limitless. Once he entered the city, he would definitely be fought over by the various large factions. At that time, as long as the little fatty said that he had violated the law, he would definitely be in trouble. Fortunately, the little fatty didn't seem to want to expose the fact that he had a great world in his mind. He negotiated with him, and no one sued the other. Chapter 1159. Chen Hao did not expose the fact that the Thunder Dragon King had violated the laws and plotted against him. The Thunder Dragon King kept his mouth shut about the fact that Chen Hao had a great mental world in the Daoist Golden Wonderland and pretended that nothing had happened. At the last moment, the Thunder Dragon King had no choice but to compromise. The great world of Xiandi was a world with perfect laws. Every place and every city had a large number of law enforcement troops. Even if a perfected immortal king was found to have violated the laws, he would be killed. Not to mention, the Thunder Dragon King was a city guardian at the 4th firmament of the Dao severing stage. Of course, these laws were set by the ruler of the great world of Xiandi, just like the laws on Earth. However, the main purpose of the laws set by the ruler of the great world of Xiandi was to create the best martial cultivation environment and to a large extent prevent the chaotic phenomenon of geniuses being strangled. Only then would the top geniuses of the other greater kiliacosms dare to come over with peace of mind and gather supreme providence for the great world of Xiandi. However, it was impossible to completely eliminate it. The secret actions driven by benefits, the protection and even connivance of the powerful figures, the loopholes in the laws, and so on. If one was really naive enough to think that nothing would happen if they did not look for trouble, then it would really be a tragedy. As someone from Earth, Chen Hao could easily see through the situation in the great world of Xiandi. It was just that the mortals on Earth had been replaced by powerful cultivators. Captain, a pair of Dao companions have passed the Thunder Dragon King's test. In the encampment palace at the west gate of the true martial city on planet Great Hua, a cultivator at the 5th firmament of the Dao severing stage looked at the other cultivator in surprise after receiving the message from the token. These 2 people were the captain and vice captain of the guards at the west gate. The one who spoke was the vice captain. Oh! The captain was slightly surprised and immediately said, "Is the potential evaluation very high?" "That's not it. It's just that this pair of Dao companions is very special." The vice captain passed the token to the captain. After the captain read the information that the Lightning Dragon King had transmitted from the token, he immediately revealed a surprised expression. He immediately said, "He is indeed very special. This little fatty might be able to let us earn a commission. It's a pity that this woman's life aura is a little too old. Otherwise, she would definitely earn more than this little fatty." That's right. Little fatty's life aura was less than 20,000 years old, but his battle prowess was already above the average of those in the same realm. He would definitely have no problem entering a second-rate academy. this girl was old. Otherwise, with her primordial Yin body and her looks, she would have been qualified to enter a second-rate academy. Furthermore, there's a chance that you'll be specially recruited by a big shot. That would be a huge gain. In the great world of Xiandi, the clans and sects were on the decline. The strongest were the academies, which were divided into 5 levels. From high to low, they were First Academy of the Immortal Emperor, Top Academy, First Academy, Second Academy, and Third Academy. The First Academy of the Immortal Emperor, as the name implied, was the highest level of the academy. However, it was not a fixed academy. In the competition between the top academies that occurred once every 1,000 years, whoever was the strongest would be the First Academy of the Immortal Emperor. This was a name that flowed like a red flag. Most cultivators were concentrated in the Third Academy. Those who were able to enter the Second Academy were basically geniuses with higher potential. For someone like Qin Hao, who was able to reach the average battle prowess of the Daoist Golden Wonderland at his age, there was no doubt that he would be favored by the Second Academy. It was a pity that Si Xian was too old, which lowered the evaluation of her potential to a large extent. Yes, it is a pity. Since we're almost there, let's go down and take a look. After the two of them finished speaking, their figures directly disappeared from the palace at the city gate. In a moment, they arrived at the entrance of the city gate. Dozens of Dao's severing perfected immortal guards stood on both sides of the city gate. When they saw the captain and vice-captain arrive together, they immediately bowed and saluted. Their gazes were filled with curiosity as they looked outside the city gate. They clearly knew what the captain and vice-captain's appearance meant. It was definitely a valuable outsider who had arrived. Otherwise, they would not have bothered to come. Guarding the city gate was a lucrative job. Under normal circumstances, cultivators who entered from outside the city were all outsiders who had smuggled in. Although the great world of Xiandi did not reject such behavior, the conditions for the smugglers to obtain the qualifications to enter the city and become a member of the great world of Xiandi were much higher than cultivators who had entered through the proper channel of the Hongmeng region's Star River Tunnel. Through the proper channel, as long as you came and registered, you would be able to start your life in the great world of Xiandi. There were no requirements for the cultivator's cultivation level and strength. However, the smugglers who had to hide their origins had to reach the average battle prowess of the same cultivation level in the great world of Xiandi. Otherwise, they would not be able to pass the test of the Thunder Dragon King and the other guards. It was also precisely because of this that the outsiders who passed the test would basically obtain the qualifications to enter the academy. Of course, the Third Academy was where most people ended up. The guards in charge of the city gate often had unspoken deals with the academies in the city. By introducing a cultivator with better potential to participate in the selection of the academy, they would be able to obtain certain benefits. The higher the potential of the cultivator who was introduced, the greater the commission they would receive. For academies that had a competitive relationship, the most fundamental competitions started from the talents. The captain and vice-captain would only appear when an outsider who had the potential to enter the Third Academy appeared. They were too lazy to appear in the Third Academy. A moment later, 2 figures appeared in front of the guards. What a beautiful woman! The Supreme of Hongmeng, Daoist Xianxia? Fuck, this little fatty is so lucky. Daoist Xianxia managed to get the supreme beauty of the Supreme of Hongmeng. Amazing! It's a primordial Yin body? Cough cough. No way, her life aura is so old? Fuck, this little fatty is very young. Dozens of Dao's severing perfected immortals stared straight at Chen Hao and Si Xian, who were flying quickly from afar. At first glance, many people were stunned by Si Xian's appearance and figure even before they sensed her aura. When they sensed the aura of the 2 people, they were surprised that the ordinary-looking little fatty could get the heart of a beauty who was a realm higher than him. That kind of feeling was like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung, or a toad eating a swan. However, as they got closer, everyone finally understood what was going on. The little fatty was definitely a very good genius, while Si Xian's appearance, figure, and temperament were first class, but her potential was very ordinary. Greetings, officers and seniors. When the two people quickly landed in front of everyone, Chen Hao's chubby face suddenly turned into a blooming chrysanthemum. He smiled brightly and flatteringly, let go of Xianxia's hand, bowed with cupped fists. Chen Hao's actions made Xian frown. Was this really Chen Hao, the god of slaughter who dominated the ancient chaos? I was delayed by something today. Finished updating. The first update has arrived. Dark Mountain continues. Chapter 1160. But it was also because of Chen Hao's flattering smile that Xian, who knew this guy's true strength, potential and character, felt her hair stand on end, a knife hidden in a smile. He probably wouldn't spit out the bones if he ate someone. Little fatty lady, congratulations on passing the Thunder Dragon King's test. From now on, you have the qualifications to cultivate and live in the great world of Xiandi. Report your names. This record will be your identity information in the future. Yes, sir. My name is Li Yuan. This is my Dao companion, Chen Hao. Chen Hao bowed, smiled, and said, use a fake name. This was what Yilan told him. Chen Hao didn't think that his name would be famous in the great world of Xiandi, but he still listened to Yilan's suggestion. Because of the identity of the Shao clan's ancestor, Yilan didn't say much about the specific situation. As for Xian, who ran away from home, she naturally used a fake name. Tens of millions of years ago, the pressure Yi Xian brought to the Shao clan's ancestor was extraordinary. The name Xian definitely couldn't be used, although Chen Hao also didn't think that a small character like them would cause any waves. Xian's face turned slightly red when she heard Chen Hao's words. Although the two of them had already discussed before coming to the city gate, when she heard Chen Hao's introduction, she still felt a little embarrassed. Of course, Xian also knew that pretending to be Dao companions would save her a lot of trouble. If it wasn't for the primordial Yin body, it would be even better. But that was impossible. The third life was still bitterly cultivating in the ancient chaos. If she lost her primordial Yin body before the fusion, her strength after the fusion would be greatly reduced. More importantly, she and Chen Hao were still worlds apart from being Dao companions. Everyone had a moment of pride in their hearts. Sometimes, the subconscious would always find the best excuse to deceive their true feelings, but the bystanders could see it clearly. Until now, Xian still didn't think that her original body had fallen. When she followed Chen Hao to the great world of Xiandi, she subconsciously found a lie to deceive herself. The sooner she came here, the faster she would improve, and the stronger she would be in the future. Her heart was always on Chen Hao, but she thought that it was because of Chen Hao's abnormal talent, and she was just curious. But what was the truth? Just like now, when she heard Chen Hao say that she was his Daoist companion, her face would turn red and her heart would ripple. However, she thought that it was a natural reaction of a woman to this kind of thing. But he didn't realize, or perhaps he didn't care, that there was no rejection in the depths of his heart. Those closely involved could not see clearly. This kind of subtle feeling could only be awakened when one experienced something or experienced a great wave. It was like a man and a woman who lived together day and night. They never thought that they had any feelings for each other, but when they were suddenly separated for a period of time, or when they tried to pursue their true love several times, their minds would be completely occupied by each other's figure. It was not until then that they would suddenly wake up. Li Yuan Chen Si. To Buzz. The guard captain directly took out 2 tokens and integrated 2 pieces of information into each of them. Immediately, he sent them in front of Chen Hao and Xian. This is your identity token. Drop a drop of blood and refine it. In the future, you will be able to walk in the great world of Xiandi. Little fatty, your talent and potential are not bad. Your Taoist companion is excellent in all aspects. The only flaw is that her life force is too old. If you want to enter an academy, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. The old man thinks that you are very pleasing to the eye. This is for you. With the old man's token, perhaps you will have hope of entering the Green Immortal Academy together. It is a very good second-rate academy. Captain? At this moment, the vice captain suddenly looked at the captain and shouted in surprise. It was as if the captain had done something very painful. It's okay. I think this little fatty is very pleasing to the eye. It can be considered a kind of fate. What is a little favor? The captain waved his hand to stop the vice-captain and smiled at Chen Hao. Chen Hao just looked at the captain in surprise, as if he didn't understand the situation. Si Xian, on the other hand, was slightly excited. Second-rate academy. According to her estimation, she would be able to enter a third-rate academy. Little fatty, why are you still not thanking the captain? This is a great favor. You are very lucky to have our captain's favor. Ah? Thank you, captain. How should I address you? This little one will remember it in his heart. In the future, I will repay you. Hearing the vice-captain's words, Chen Hao suddenly seemed to wake up from his daze. He immediately said with tears of gratitude. He was so excited that his hands trembled a little as he took the token from the captain. The old man does not ask you to repay him. There is no need to mention his name. When the time comes, hand it over to the examiners of the Green Immortal Academy. The old man's face should be useful. Yes, a good person. Si Xian, we have met a benefactor. Senior, I will come to see you. Chen Hao bowed again. His eyes were brimming with tears as he pulled Si Xian, who was also very grateful to the captain. He turned around and stepped into the city gate. This little fatty is really a sentimental person? Ha! A little interesting. Captain, I think this kid will definitely come back to repay you in the future. That look of gratitude, ha! That Chen Si is not as simple as she looks. She has lived for tens of millions of years and has a body of primordial yin, but her face does not have the slightest bit of aging. Her vitality seems to be in its twilight years, but there is a faint trace of vitality. Oh? Impressive, Captain's eyesight seems to have improved again. I did not sense anything. The vice-captain was slightly surprised. However, it is indeed a little strange. I did not feel it when I saw the image, but when I looked closely, this woman's face did not have the slightest trace of aging, tens of millions of years, even we have become like this. However, she must have consumed some powerful spirit medicine. Must be. Otherwise, she would have already reached the cutting Dao stage and would not have wasted tens of millions of years. Even if she came to the great world of Xiandi, the gains would not make up for the losses. If the guards of the city gate wanted to get enough benefits, they must have good eyesight. And the captain's eyes were undoubtedly sharp, much stronger than the lightning dragon king's. Otherwise, he would not have been able to see through Si Xian's abnormality. On the wide streets of true martial city, countless cultivators of different realms looked at the two figures that appeared in the city. Chen Hao, who had transformed into a little fatty, did not seem to feel anything. He simply did not care about the crowds pointing and whispering. He only pulled Si Xian, and like Granny Lu entering the Grandview Garden, he was full of curiosity and excitement as he paid attention to the palaces that stood on both sides of the street. It was filled with rare spirit item shops, soft armor, special treasures, rune shops, divine weapons shops, strange items shops, pawn shops, banks, taverns, inns, and so on. There was everything that one could think of. The only hard currency here was the immortal crystal coins that the ruling class of the great world of Xiandi had unified and refined. There are 2 updates today. Chapter 1161. Immortal crystal coins contained a limited amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi, and could not be refined and absorbed by cultivators. To be exact, immortal crystal coins were of no use to cultivators. However, the ruling class of the great world of Xiandi had turned it into the only currency in the great world of Xiandi. Just like the paper money on Earth, it had no value in itself, but it was a recognized currency. Shall we go directly to the Green Immortal Academy? Si Xian frowned slightly and transmitted her voice. Obviously, the glances and discussions of the cultivators around her made her unable to remain calm. To her, the word old was too harsh to the ears. But that was the truth, so what could she do? Moreover, whether it was the low-level Daoist Jingxian, the Supreme Hongmeng, or the high-level cutting Dao True Immortals, there were a lot of people with powerful auras. This was not something the ancient chaos-boundless world could compare to. Fortunately, Xian was already mentally prepared, so she could still endure it. What are we going there for? Chen Hao turned to look at Xian and asked in surprise. Of course it's to enter an academy, a second-rate academy. That captain is really a good person. It doesn't matter to you, but if I can enter a second-rate academy, it will be very difficult. Xian said very seriously, but she saw Chen Hao staring at her strangely. She suddenly thought of something and said, "Forget it, give me the token, and I won't affect you. You can enter a first-rate academy." "How old are you this year?" Chen Hao asked. Xian blushed and said, "You already know the answer, so what if I'm old?" "I feel that you're still underage, can we not be so naive?" "What do you mean? Do you really think that old guy is a good person? Even if you were sold, you would still count the money for him." Chen Hao said speechlessly. "It can't be. He gave us the token and recommended us. Could it be fake? At most, we can't enter, so we can't be sold." Xian said. "Remember, don't let your guard down at any time. You didn't see the old guy's eyes at that time, right? You didn't notice the way the two of them acted, right? You also didn't notice the expressions of the guards around you, right?" Chen Hao said. "No, don't think too badly of yourself. You have cultivated the 9 lives profound technique. Although you have lived for tens of millions of years, your face has not aged at all. Moreover, you're only in the Hongmeng realm. You haven't cut the path, so you haven't settled down yet. Also, you have a primordial Yin body, and your looks are just SOSO. These are all your bargaining chips. Just based on these conditions, you may be able to obtain the qualifications to enter a second-rate academy. Naturally, I have no problem with that." Xian frowned slightly. It was obvious that Chen Hao's words made her a little depressed. She retorted, "Isn't that still a second-rate academy?" We are both Daoist Jingxian. You can casually pick a Daoist Jingxian in ancient chaos. Can he be compared to me? Chen Hao said through voice transmission. At the same time, he looked at a female Dao severing true immortal cultivator not far away. He pulled Xian closer to her. "Hello, pretty sister, can I ask you a question?" Chen Hao's chubby face once again turned into a blooming chrysanthemum. However, his eyes were clear and his expression simple and honest. He cupped his fist and asked the female cultivator. "Huh? Little fatty, you're new here?" Sister's eyes are as sharp as torches. "We just arrived here. Do you know Green Nether Academy?" "Green Nether Academy?" The female cultivator was slightly taken aback. She immediately understood. "Did the guards at the city gate recommend you? They even gave you a token? I don't need you to say it, I can guess. Little fatty, you're so young and your aura is not bad. If you can pass the examination and enter the city, you'll definitely have no problem entering a second-rate academy. As for your female companion, I advise you to go through the proper channels. Otherwise, it'll be too late for regrets. Green Nether Academy is only at the bottom of the second-rate academy. You can consider my academy, Jinxing Academy. It's above average among the second-rate academies. Of course, if you're not in a hurry, it's best if you can cultivate for a while before considering joining the academy. It'll be good for you. Thank you, sister. You're welcome. Little fatty, your mouth is quite sweet. Xian was a little speechless as she followed Chen Hao to bid farewell to the pretty sister. Did you hear that? What she said is true. The appearance is born from the heart. Brother, I've always been very good at judging people. Moreover, I'm so honest and cute. Why would she need to lie to me? Chen Hao said proudly. It has to be said that after becoming like this, although he lost his handsomeness, it was easier for him to gain the goodwill of others. Harmless to humans and animals, forget it. If you don't want to go, then don't go. Let's see what happens. Xian stared at Chen Hao for a moment before saying, "Let's find a pawn shop first." Chen Hao replied, "In the ancient chaos-boundless world, once one's cultivation reached a certain level, one would not need to eat. One could condense a palace anywhere or live in the wilderness. It didn't matter whether one had money or not. But in the great world of Xiandi, this was not the case. Other than the cultivators who had just entered the city, who had 1 year of free time, all the cultivators had to pay a certain amount of immortal crystal coins according to the number of days they stayed in the city. Moreover, no one could casually condense a palace on the streets of the city for living and cultivation. To survive here, one had to buy one's own palace or choose to live in an inn. There were many ways to obtain immortal crystal coins. One was to work as a coolie and go to the Great World of Xianxia Alliance's mission center to accept missions and obtain rewards. Another was to participate in the academy's assessment. As long as one could become a student of the academy, one would be able to obtain a basic living guarantee. Third was to obtain rewards through fighting in the Alliance's challenge center. Fourth was to enter various chambers of commerce and forces and obtain wages by working for them. Fifth was to sell oneself. Both men and women could sell themselves, as long as one had the qualifications to sell themselves. This was equivalent to the young miss and young master on Earth. In the great world of Xianxia, it was a legal existence. Moreover, it was a very popular industry. The difference was that this was an industry that cultivators engaged in. It was simply impossible to sell one's body. Therefore, appearance was not the most important. Cultivation, comprehension, and talent were the most important assets. However, legal was legal. But those who engaged in this industry were still despised by most people. Just like on Earth, they were basically doing it secretly under disguises, and there were people from low level to high level. Those who did it for money were in the minority, and those who did it for cultivation were the majority. While selling oneself, they were also cultivating. It was the same nature as the Happy Valley back then. It had just become a public industry. Hello, miss. Just as Chen Hao and Si Xian were about to step into a pawnshop, a young-looking peak late-stage Grandmist Supremacy Realm expert suddenly blocked their way. He directly ignored Chen Hao and greeted Si Xian with cupped fists. His eyes were shining, or rather, they were shining with lust. Chapter 1162. Si Xian immediately stopped and frowned slightly. Chen Hao also stopped with Si Xian, but he took half a step forward and slightly surpassed Si Xian. He said, "I'm her cultivation partner. What do you want?" At this moment, the cultivator glanced at Chen Hao's face and smiled slightly. He still looked at Si Xian. His lips moved slightly, but no sound came out. Si Xian's expression changed. It was obvious that the cultivator was talking to her. However, after a moment, Si Xian directly said with a cold face, "Not interested. Fatty, let's go." After Si Xian finished speaking, she pulled Chen Hao around and continued to walk toward the entrance of the pawnshop. "Miss, are you really not going to consider it? Your life aura is very old. This is the best way for you to improve quickly." The cultivator's figure flashed, and he once again blocked the two of them and said directly. Si Xian's special situation had already attracted the attention of many people. At this time, many cultivators who were passing by stopped and chose to watch. Such a scene was a common occurrence in True Martial City, or any of the border cities of the Immortal Emperor's Great Thousand Worlds. Moreover, it mainly happened to beauties with primordial in-body, and their talent was basically average. "Not interested. Please move aside," Si Xian said coldly. "Don't be in a hurry to refuse. The great world of Xianxia is not as simple as you think. Once you've thought about it, you can come and find me at any time." The cultivator said with a smile, his lustful eyes still sweeping over Si Xian's body. "Do you think Sima Duo Li will succeed this time? It's difficult today, but it's hard to say later." This pair of cultivation partners seems to have just arrived at the great world of Xianxia. They don't know the cruelty of the great world of Xianxia yet. After they stay for a while, the possibility of yielding is high. This beauty's life aura is so old. In the face of benefits, how will she choose? How many people can resist the temptation? That's true. Beauty is also a kind of innate capital. Although this beauty's life aura is old, her face does not show any signs of aging. She looks like a mature girl. What's more rare is that she still has her primordial in body. Maybe he can become the plaything of a big shot above the sixth heaven of cutting path. In the future, his improvement will be fast. Sima Duo Li, the cultivator who stopped Chen Hao and Si Xian, was one of the people who specialized in this kind of headhunting job in the true martial city. He had judged Si Xian's value at first glance. If it wasn't for the fact that his life aura was very old, he would definitely be able to sell it to true martial city's top figures who had this hobby. However, even so, Si Xian's beautiful youthful appearance and primordial yin body could be sold for a high price. After all, there were many rich people who didn't care about talent at all. They only cared about looks and figures. This little fatty is really good at enduring. His Dao companion is about to be snatched away, but he doesn't even say a word. He's even smiling foolishly. "Are you done? If you're done, can you step aside?" Chen Hao said in a lukewarm tone. "Miss, although this little fatty's talent is good for his age, but at best, he is only from a second-rate academy. Moreover, he is only Daoist Jingxian. Even if he is of help to you in the future, can you afford to wait? Think about it carefully. Put down your reservations, and a bright future will appear in front of you. Moreover, this little fatty is simply a good-for-nothing. Why do you have to be reluctant to part with him? Please be more respectful when you speak. He is my Dao companion," Si Xian said angrily. As she spoke, the hand that was holding Chen Hao's hand tightened. Obviously, she was afraid that Chen Hao would flip out. Others didn't know, but she was still clear. If Chen Hao was speaking, she would feel more at ease. However, after he spoke a sentence, he fell silent, squinted his eyes, and smiled foolishly. This made Si Xian feel afraid. She had just entered the great world of Xiandi. She didn't want to cause trouble. Although no one dared to kill in public in the great world of Xiandi, what about in secret? No matter how strict the rules were, they were not the rules of the heavenly Dao. They couldn't be completely monitored. Enduring was a must. However, are you done talking? Chen Hao also held Si Xian's hand tightly. He took a step forward and pulled Si Xian directly to the cultivator. His chubby face still had a silly smile as he asked, "Let's go this way." Si Xian pulled Chen Hao and was about to go around again. However, Chen Hao's feet seemed to be rooted to the ground. His chubby body didn't even move. "Oh, little fatty, I said that you are a good-for-nothing. Do you want to show off? I'm done talking. Welcome to the challenge." Sima Duo Li's lips curled up slightly as he said mockingly, "Do you think I'm stupid? If you're done talking, then scram. A good dog doesn't block the way." "What did you say? Are you deaf? Fine, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Tell me your name, identity, and category. When I become the Supreme of Hongmeng, you'll be the first one I'll kill." Why wait? I can seal myself to the Zenith Heaven realm to fight with you. What do you think?" Sima Duo Li's eyes flashed with an undetectable murderous intent as he said provocatively, "I see." Chen Hao seemed a little surprised. He rubbed his nose and said, "It's not a battle of life and death, right? It's up to you." Sima Duo Li didn't dare to be too harsh. Otherwise, if little fatty didn't agree to his challenge, he would lose everything. If it wasn't a battle of life and death, he could defeat little fatty and help Si Xian join him. Why not do it? "I hate killing people the most, no matter if they are rich or poor. Although you are a little cheap. So, let's not have a battle of life and death. Let's determine the winner and loser. However, I'm not interested in a battle without a prize." Fuck. Chen Hao's words made Sima Duo Li want to strangle him to death. However, before the challenge contract was signed, he could only endure it for now. He said, "So, you want to make a bet? Little fatty, are you stupid?" This Sima Duo Li is very strong. Even if he is in the sealed realm, his combat skills, soul power, and mental state are all at the level of the Supreme of Hongmeng. How can this little fatty is called Li Yuan? Two bright rays of light formed their respective cultivation level and names in the void. This was the process that one had to go through to sign the great world of Xiandi's challenge contract. Although it was Chen Hao's first time using it, With Yilan's experience, he was very clear about the basic rules of the great world of Xiandi. Xian knew that she could not stop Chen Hao. However, Xian was relieved that he had sealed his cultivation level. Others might not know Chen Hao well, but how could she not know? In the same cultivation level, even in the great world of Xiandi, only a small group of top figures could defeat Chen Hao. Chen Hao, who had transformed into a little fatty, had restrained himself a lot after his experience with the Thunder Dragon King. He did not even dare to release his bloodline aura. If not, Sima Duoli would not be so arrogant as to fight Chen Hao with his sealed cultivation level. Buzz, 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 buzz. The aura of the token was released. In just a few breaths, several fourth heaven true immortals in bright armor and uniforms stepped out of the space-time gate that suddenly appeared in the void. They were the enforcers of the real martial city. Li Yuan, you want to challenge Sima Duoli? The old man in the lead looked down at Chen Hao and Sima Duoli, who had taken out their tokens, and asked expressionlessly. His sealed cultivation level is Daoist Jinxian. The bet is 100,000 immortal crystal coins. That's right. Enforcers, please seal him. This is 100,000 immortal crystal coins. Buzz. As Sima Duoli spoke, he took out a storage ring with immortal crystal coins on it. I have 10 divine artifacts here. They should be worth 100,000 immortal crystal coins. Buzz. Chen Hao had already prepared. He took out 10 divine artifacts that he had originally planned to exchange for immortal crystal coins when he came to the great world of Xiandi. Ancient divine artifacts are worth 100,000 immortal crystals. The enforcer glanced at them and said indifferently. He waved his hand and put away the 2 bets. At the same time, the other 5 enforcers pointed their fingers at Sima Duoli. Buzz. Sima Duoli was immediately surrounded by endless runes and immortal light. Immediately, his cultivation level and aura were sealed in the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Rise. Buzz. The enforcer leader's glabella flashed, and a huge arena suddenly rose into the air and floated directly in the void. Chen Hao and Xian were shocked. They also had a clearer understanding of the complete law system and powerful foundation of the great world of Xiandi. Chapter 1163. A Mobile Arena. It was a specially condensed magic treasure. The powerful aura of the space-time technique and the mystery of the runes were beyond the knowledge of Chen Hao and Xian. Obviously, it was a genuine immortal magic treasure. This was only the real martial city. How many cities like this were there in the great world of Xiandi? Moreover, the huge real martial city had more than one enforcement team. In other words, there was more than one mobile arena in the real martial city. Ancient chaos, which had just been unified, could not be compared to this. Enforcer. We are just fighting in the golden celestial stage. Is there a need for such a high-level arena? Just as Chen Hao was about to enter the arena, Sima Duoli said with a pained expression. The low-level arenas are in use. Only this one is available. 5,000 fairy crystal coins per minute. The minimum time limit is 1 minute. The maximum deduction is the wager of both of you. There is no need to pay extra. The time starts now. The enforcer's face darkened and he looked at Sima Duoli. He was obviously impatient and said coldly, Are you serious? When Chen Hao heard the enforcer's words, the fat on his face trembled. Fuck, isn't this robbery? 5,000 fairy crystal coins per minute. If they fought for 2 minutes, it would be 10,000 fairy crystal coins. If they fought for 20 minutes, even if they won, the 100,000 fairy crystal coins would be gone. Without saying a word, Sima Duoli flew toward the arena with a gloomy face. Looking at the situation, it was obvious that they could not go back on their words and challenge the arena. Chen Hao also flew toward the arena with a pained expression. If he had known this, Chen Hao would not have taken the initiative to use the token. The enforcement team was too deceitful. Of course, it was also their fault that they did not ask at the beginning and sign the contract directly. Otherwise, they could still go back on their words before the enforcement team took action. And now, both of them had already made their moves. Furthermore, they had even brought out their battle rings. Evidently, There was no turning back. Little fatty, lie down. The moment the two of them entered the arena, Sima Duo Li violently shot out sword radiance from his hand. Originally, he had wanted to trample on Chen Hao and display his super powerful battle skills and Abijna law to let Si Xian know the true strength of the cultivators of the great world of Xiandi. But now, he could only choose to end the battle quickly. 1 minute was 5,000 immortal crystal coins. Even if he was rich, it was relative. 100,000 immortal crystal coins was a large sum. How could he waste it? Therefore, this guy directly raised his power to the peak. The dazzling and majestic sword light carried a terrifying might and boundless Dao laws as it enveloped Chen Hao. This little fatty is too impulsive. The female cultivator who tried to persuade Chen Hao frowned and shook her head when she saw Sima Duo Li's sword light. Not necessarily. What surprised the female cultivator was that her Dao companion beside her smiled and stared at Chen Hao Dao, who was in the arena. The female cultivator's Taoist companion was a 4th-stage Dao severing perfected immortal. She was also one of the 4th-stage Dao severing experts in Jin Xing Academy. This little fatty's life aura is extremely young. Moreover, he must have concealed his aura and pretended to be weak. Concealed his aura and pretended to be weak? You can tell? I can't tell from him. But take a closer look at his Taoist companion. She has lived for tens of millions of years, but her appearance has not aged at all. Moreover, her life aura still contains a trace of vitality. She must have possessed the ability to Dao severing long ago, but she has not done so. She is still in Hongmeng and has retained her primordial Yin body. If not for her confidence in her lifespan, who would spend tens of millions of years to come to the great world of Xiandi? She either has swallowed a precious spiritual item of heaven and earth, or she has cultivated a kind of ultimate technique. If you carefully sense her aura, she must be very strong in Hongmeng. In a second-rate academy, she is definitely a first-rate expert in the same realm. If she fought with Sima Duo Li, she might not lose. But she did not stop him. When you look at her eyes again, is there any worry? No, there is only a trace of excitement. You are so powerful, you look so carefully. Don't tell me, don't talk nonsense. I only have you in my heart. I only paid more attention because you care about this little fatty. Looking at a man's strength through his Taoist companion is also a method. Just like you, when others see you, they will know that I am not weak. No matter how I hide, don't you think so? Are you praising yourself or praising me? This little fatty is so fast. Great teleportation technique. The exchange of thoughts between the two of them only lasted for a split second. At their realm, as spectators who were not affected by the pressure of the Dao marks, the speed of their mental state was undoubtedly countless times faster than the movements of the people fighting. Great teleportation technique? That's right. He is indeed not simple. It can't be? This fatty's speed is actually so fast? The female cultivator and her Taoist companion were not the only ones who were surprised. Chen Hao's fat body suddenly teleported in a flash, causing all the spectating cultivators to reveal shocked expressions. Eat this fat master's fist. Boom. Chen Hao, who had already transformed into a fatty, swung his fat buttocks at a high frequency, creating numerous afterimages. After suddenly dodging the terrifying sword light, he directly appeared above his opponent's head. His entire body was blown up like a balloon, turning into a round shape. At the same time, he sent out a punch. The fist that was like a towering mountain, carrying a desolate aura that could destroy everything in the world, came crashing down, courting death. Sima Duo Li, who was also shocked by Chen Hao's terrifying speed, roared angrily and waved his sword to meet the attack. The majestic power that was filled with a desolate aura forced him to be on guard and use all his strength to deal with it. In just 2 moves, he already knew that he had underestimated this fatty. Whether it was his state of mind, will, or comprehension of the heavenly Tao, this fatty was not inferior to him. Otherwise, he would not have been able to dodge his full-force attack so easily and directly attack above his head. This made him very angry and pained. He concluded that it was not something that could be done in 1 or 2 minutes to defeat this fatty. He was afraid that his bet with this fatty would be given to the law enforcement officer. Rumble. The terrifying sword light and Qinhao's mountain-like fist collided. The seemingly terrifying fist light was directly annihilated by the sword light, as if it could not withstand a single blow. However, at this moment, Sima Duo Li suddenly burst into a roar of horror and anger. Chi, boom boom boom. Then, the terrifying explosion of energy resounded throughout the world. All the spectating cultivators, including Si Xian, widened their eyes and were dumbfounded. Ugh, this works too? That's too cruel. It can't be. Is this a fucking battle with Daoist Jinxian? This fatty really doesn't want to live. He's ruthless. He's so shameless. Chapter 1164. Once the divine ability was unleashed, it would connect with the mind and soul. Only when the divine ability was fully unleashed would the mind and soul withdraw. This was the most basic principle. Before the divine ability was fully unleashed, forcefully withdrawing would cause the mind and soul to suffer a backlash that was even greater than if the divine ability was destroyed by an expert. The damage to one's body would be huge. Because of this, under normal circumstances, no one would, or rather, no one would dare to, forcefully withdraw before the divine ability was fully unleashed. That was purely because one was making life difficult for themselves. However, what the crowd did not expect was that after this little fatty unleashed a punch with all his might, he actually forcefully withdrew. What was even more ridiculous was that the moment he forcefully withdrew, he did not care about the backlash and used the great teleportation technique again. His fat body flashed and rushed behind Sima Duo Li. If that was all, it would be fine. However, what was even crazier was that the little fatty was like a human cannonball. He opened his arms and with a speed as fast as a ghost, he directly hugged Sima Duo Li, who had no time to withdraw from the attack, from the waist. At the same time, he also locked Sima Duo Li's arms. Such a crazy, sinister, thrilling, dangerous, and shameless way of fighting was definitely unheard of. However, the little fatty had succeeded in locking. As Sima Duo Li roared in horror and crazily urged his energy to burst out from his body, Qinhao was blasted to the point that his fat skin was overturned and his flesh was torn apart. However, his fat body made cracking sounds as his bones and tendons trembled. His hands and body were like steel bars and iron hoops that squeezed Sima Duo Li's body until it was completely distorted. His brute force was endless, accompanied by an endless aura of desolation that devoured life. Under the shocked gaze of the crowd, Sima Duo Li's roar turned into a scream of fear. The fatty's injuries were getting worse and worse, but he did not let go. Sima Duo Li struggled more and more crazily, but his life force and strength were rapidly weakening. The color of his face instantly turned gray. Finally, the two of them fell from the void of the arena and landed on the hard, rune-filled ground of the arena. Damn it, still not admitting defeat? Boom. The fat man was covered in blood. The moment he landed on the ground, he flipped over and sat on top of Sima Duo Li. His fat body and fat but almost flattened Sima Duo Li, who was lying on the ground. What made everyone speechless, what made Si Xian want to cover her face and pretend not to know Qinhao was, not only was this fellow riding Sima Duo Li, he was also quickly getting up and down, sitting down, getting up again, and sitting down again. Under the desolate aura and mysterious runes that surrounded him, Qinhao was like a rammed foundation. Every time he landed, Sima Duo Li, whose life force was getting weaker and weaker, let out an sound, followed by a mouthful of essence blood. The man's eyes widened, and the woman felt nauseous and blushed. This was too fucking similar to some kind of camera. You dare to have designs on Lord Fatty's woman? Grandpa Fatty will sit you to death. Motherfucker, I wanted to keep a low profile, but you forced me to reveal my identity, and Lord Fatty's trump card. Motherfucker, still not admitting defeat? You're courting death. Seems like you are not satisfied enough. Everyone's expression twitched. Motherfucker, this little fatty is too shameless. How is this not admitting defeat? It is obvious that you did not give him a chance to speak. The moment he opened his mouth, he was smashed by your butt, and the words that came out of his mouth were, But at this moment, the fat man suddenly made a move that made everyone break out in cold sweat. This fellow actually took out a thick, big and long red spear, Overlord Spear. This time, when everyone saw the fat man holding the spear with both hands and stabbing downwards, all the men present shuddered. Their legs tightened and their buttocks turned cold. Enough. The law enforcement officer who had waited long enough finally made his move. In fact, the winner and loser had already been decided, but they could not wait for the other party to delay for a while so that they could deduct more commission. Being able to deduct all the money from the bet was undoubtedly the most satisfactory result. But now, seeing the wretched, shameless, obscene, and crazy actions of the little fatty, it would be unreasonable if they did not stop the competition. After all, this was not a life and death duel. If something happened, they would have to take responsibility. The law enforcement officer waved his hand and released a terrifying immortal light, directly separating the two. Li Yuanxing. The battle time is 8 minutes and 39 seconds, calculated as 9 minutes. This is the bet of 55,000 immortal crystal coins and your ancient sacred weapon. The law enforcement officer directly announced the result of the battle and sent the bet to Chen Hao. Little fatty, you are a cultivator from the vast thousand worlds, right? To Chen Hao's surprise, when he received the bet, the voice of the leader of the law enforcement officers rang in his mind. Senior, how did you know? Chen Hao was covered in blood and his flesh was lacerated, but his essence, qi, and spirit seemed to have been seriously exhausted. However, his expression remained unchanged and he transmitted his voice. How could Old Man not know the aura of the Heavenly Wasteland Sutra? Old Man was also born in the vast thousand worlds. Remember, in the future, you have to endure everything. With your fighting style, if you meet an expert, you are simply courting death. You are definitely a rare genius to be able to comprehend the Heavenly Wasteland Sutra to this extent. Work hard and improve your real combat strength is the most important thing. Cough cough. Thank you for your teachings, senior. Chen Hao wiped the blood and sweat on his face and transmitted his voice. The law enforcement officer directly attacked, and Chen Hao and Sima Duo Li were immediately sent out of the arena. Immediately, the arena flashed and disappeared between the eyebrows of the leader of the law enforcement officers. The group instantly stepped into the space-time gate and disappeared into the void. Cici, quick, help me! In the void, Chen Hao shouted. Si Xian looked at Chen Hao's lacerated flesh and dispirited appearance. Although she knew that this guy was pretending, she had to cooperate with him. She looked very touched, heartbroken, and worried. She directly soared into the air and hugged Chen Hao's arm tightly. Her acting skills were definitely top-notch. Of course, to be able to act so well, her attitude was naturally very correct. At least, it was not all a pretense. Are your injuries serious? I'm fine. For you, this injury is nothing. Chen Hao's obviously painful and dispirited fat face squeezed out a smile like a blooming chrysanthemum. This little fatty is really not simple. Many people in the crowd exclaimed in their hearts. Little fatty. Chichi. At this moment, the female cultivator and her cultivation partner's figure flashed and appeared in front of Chen Hao and Si Xian. Chapter 1165. Nice to meet you, pretty sister. Is this your Dao partner? He's righteous, clean, handsome, and has a powerful aura. You're so lucky, sister. Chen Hao looked at the female cultivator's Dao partner, and his mouth was filled with honey. However, his originally chubby face was now pale and dispirited with blood stains, making him look extremely comical. You flatter me, little brother. The female cultivator's Dao partner cupped her fists and said to Chen Hao. She smiled because of Chen Hao's compliment. Little fatty, I'm Fan Ling, and my Dao partner is Zhou Yuchen. Are you seriously injured? Fan Ling asked with concern. She was secretly delighted because of little Fatty's compliment to her Dao partner. No matter how hard one tried, flattery would never work. Regardless of whether Chen Hao's compliment was genuine or not, Fan Zhen and Zhou Yuchen were very pleased. So you're called Fan Ling, don't worry, Sister Ling. I'm tough, and this injury is nothing. Sister Ling, Brother Chen, let me formally introduce myself. I'm Li Yuan. You can call me Little Fatty. My Dao partner is Chen Hao. Chen Hao said. While Chen Hao was talking, Si Xian, who was supporting Chen Hao, surged with Dao Law energy. She was obviously helping Chen Hao heal his injuries. Hearing Chen Hao's words, Si Xian nodded slightly at the two of them but did not say anything. Si Xian's aura was too old, but she was only a supremacy of Hongmeng. Chen Hao kept calling her sister and brother. How should she address Si Xian, who was his Dao partner? She could not say that. Countless spectators were attracted by the arena battle. Regardless of their cultivation base, they were all watching and discussing the little fatty who had shocked them. As for Sima Duo Li, who was almost penetrated by the Overlord's spear, after panting for a moment, he did not say a word. He dragged his lifeless body and left dejectedly. He had failed miserably. No matter what, he had to get back at them. A dog that bites does not bark. He wasn't stupid enough to say a few words before he left. That would be meaningless. Chen Si, just like your name. I'll call you Cici. Fan Ling, on the other hand, smiled slightly. Looking at Si Xian's delicate face that didn't show any signs of aging, she said, Little Fatty, it's too dangerous for you to fight like this. Don't force yourself. Cici, take him to our residence to heal first. This. Si Xian looked at Chen Hao. No need, no need. Sister Ling, we can just find an inn. We just earned some money, huh? There's no need to trouble you. I think Big Brother Chen should also have just returned from his training, right? I can't disturb you. Thank you for your kindness. Chen Hao said. All right then. We are in Jinxing Academy. You should be able to pass the assessment. If you're interested, let me know. Yu Chen may be able to help you a little. Fan Jin said. NN, Sister Ling, Brother Chen, then we'll be going. See you again. Yes. Little brother, be careful of Sima Duoli. He is a member of the Headhunter Guild. He has a strong background and has connections with many important people. If you provoke him, there will be trouble in the future. If there is a challenger, it's best not to agree before you understand the situation of the other party. It's best not to do solo missions or leave the city before you enter the academy. The dangers of the great world of Xiandi are definitely not as simple as you think. When Chen Hao was supported by Si Xian and quickly left, Zhou Yuchen's voice appeared in Chen Hao's mind. Thank you Brother Chen for the reminder. After Si Xian stepped out of the crowd with Chen Hao, she flew away quickly and disappeared from everyone's sight in the blink of an eye. Very quickly, the gathered cultivators dispersed without causing any commotion. If such a battle was in ancient chaos, it might cause a commotion. But in the great thousand world of the immortal emperors, it couldn't be any more normal. In the eyes of many people, Chen Hao's strength was just SOSO. The only thing that stood out was the great teleportation technique and the heavenly wasteland scripture. To be able to defeat Sima Duoli, it wasn't a true suppression of strength, but a desperate, wretched, shameless, crazy battle tactic. However, there were a few people like Fan Zhen and Zhou Yuchen who saw that little fatty Chen Hao and Si Xian were not as simple as they seemed. But they just saw it and didn't care. In the great thousand immortal emperors world, there were too many people hiding their strength. There were also too many people pretending to be pigs to eat tigers. In such a competitive world where geniuses gathered, no one would reveal all their trump cards. Or rather, no one dared to. Unless they had a strong background and their strength had reached the peak of the same realm. When the top geniuses from different greater worlds entered the great world of Xiandi, no matter if they were dragons or tigers, they had to lie down. Forbearance was a lesson that every cultivator had to learn. You don't have to pretend anymore. In the room of the inn, Chen Hao was supported by Si Xian. After closing the door and opening the seal, Xian let go of Chen Hao and said. Her face was slightly red. Although she had already expected that they would encounter such a scene when they pretended to be Daoist companions, she still felt strange when they entered a room together. A man and a woman alone, traveling together was a very dangerous thing. It was even more dangerous to enter a room together. It was impossible to say that he didn't feel anything. I feel okay. Chen Hao looked at Xian, smiled, shook his arm and said. Being supported by Xian was undoubtedly a very intimate contact. How could Chen Hao not feel anything? Of course, if they were in the great world of ancient chaos, he definitely wouldn't say anything. But now, they were alone in the great world of Xiandi, a man and a woman traveling together, and their relationship was developing in a certain direction. Chen Hao didn't have too many misgivings, and directly said such teasing words. At the same time, Chen Hao's body flashed with a crystal light, the blood and wounds on his face and body disappeared, and he returned to his fair and chubby appearance. Obviously, the wounds that Sima Duo Li left on Chen Hao contained profound Dao marks, and were of no threat to Chen Hao. What? Chen Hao's answer made Xian frown slightly. Hee, papa. Chen Hao glanced at Xian's full breasts, and at the same time, shamelessly patted Xian's left arm. If Xian still didn't understand, she should really bang her head against the wall, but it was precisely because she understood that Xian's face flushed red. Xian, I didn't expect your acting to be so good, your emotions are on point. If we were on Earth, this year's best actress would definitely be you. Chen Hao continued. Go to hell. Xian was furious. As an immortal legend, who dared to tease her? But now, she was obviously being teased by this damn fatty. Why did she feel flustered? Chapter 1166. You're quite cute when you act coquettishly. Fatty, what nonsense are you talking about? Who's acting coquettishly? Xian, who was already a little flustered, blushed even more when she heard Chen Hao's words. Let's get down to business. What do you plan to do next? Chen Hao saw that Xian's face was about to bleed and stopped teasing her. He sat cross-legged on the cushion in the living room and said, Aren't we going to find your parents and Han Mei first? What other plans can I have? Xian was eager to change the topic. The atmosphere just now made her flustered and uncomfortable. However, I'm afraid we won't be able to find them in a short time. The great world of Xiandi is vast and boundless. Although we all came out from around the same point in the Milky Way tunnel, we've been flying in the chaotic space for more than a month. With your speed, I'm afraid you'll have to fly in the great world of Xiandi for several decades. You won't have a clue at all. That's true. I didn't expect it to take so long in the chaotic space. I can't sense the auras of my 5 clones. They should have gone to other cities or even other planets. Moreover, my parents and Master Han Mei must have changed their names and hidden themselves like us. This is undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. Let's put this matter aside for the time being, Chen Hao said with a slight frown. Rumors were, after all, just rumors. After stepping into the great world of Xiandi, Chen Hao and Xian felt like frogs in a well looking at the sky in a short time. Everything here was much more powerful than what Yi Lan had described. Although the essence of things hadn't changed much, what they saw and heard after stepping into the true martial city was obviously greatly different from the great world of Xiandi in Yi Lan's memory. This was also expected. After all, Yi Lan had left the great world of Xiandi for nearly hundreds of millions of years. After such a long time, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that the great world of Xiandi had changed. Then what do you plan to do? Are you going to advance in the Grandmist domain first? Xian sat cross-legged across from Chen Hao and asked. Chen Hao pondered for a moment, then shook his head and said, Let's not go to the Hongming region for now. The heavenly Dao and spiritual qi of heaven and earth here are stronger than we imagined. I feel that there is still a lot of room for improvement. It is not the right time to enter the Hongming domain. It would be best for you to enter the academy first and familiarize yourself with everything here. Only then will you be able to make your next move, Chen Hao said. It shouldn't be a problem for you to enter a first-class academy. I'll make my choice after you decide where you want to go. Don't worry, I won't drag you down as long as we are in the same city, Xian said. Just as she entered true martial city, something like this had happened. This made Xian realize that a single beauty like her who maintained her primordial Yin body was like a sheep that had stepped into a pack of wolves. Even if she entered the academy, she probably wouldn't be able to remain calm. After Chen Hao entered a first-class academy, it would be much better for her to have a Dao partner, like Chen Hao, to act as a shield. At the very least, many people wouldn't dare to have any ideas about her. This was also what Hunting Head Sima Duo had told her through voice transmission. It made her completely understand, with a primordial Yin body, her looks and figure were top-notch, and she hadn't severed her Dao yet. She had a lot of potential. According to Sima Duo Li, he could recommend Xian to many important people and make her their woman. To put it bluntly, she would be a plaything in the dark. However, the cultivation of these important people could allow Xian to improve at an astonishing rate. This was definitely a great temptation for women who didn't have moral integrity and chastity. Although they couldn't see the light of day, it was definitely the best way to reach the heavens in a single bound. However, Xian wasn't that kind of person, and she didn't need that kind of shortcut. Naturally, she wouldn't agree. Since I'm already here, how can I drag you down? Let's understand the situation first. This place is very different from what Senior Yilan said. I don't necessarily have to enter a first-class academy. You mean, you want to enter the same academy as me? Xian's eyes lit up when she heard Chen Hao's words. Did I say that? Chen Hao frowned and asked. Xian was slightly stunned. She immediately curled her lips and said, "Damn fatty, I knew you wouldn't be so kind. It's over?" Chen Hao stared at Xian and said something inexplicable. Xian knew that it was definitely not something good, but she couldn't help but ask. You seem to have fallen in love with this fat body of mine. What nonsense are you talking about? Who likes a fat person like you? You're thinking too much. Xian said angrily. However, as she spoke, she smiled slightly. But what? Chen Hao narrowed his eyes, and his chubby face once again bloomed into a brilliant smile. My appearance is indeed cuter and more amiable, right? Xian was slightly stunned, and then she said, It's more wretched, more shameless, more insidious, more despicable, but I feel that this seems to be your true nature? Are you serious? This time, Chen Hao was slightly stunned, and his heart thumped as he realized something. Nature. Could it be that this is my true nature? The facts were indeed as Xian said. After disguising himself as a fatty and entering a new world, besides Xian, he who didn't have any relatives or friends by his side seemed to be like a fish in water when he appeared with his current character. It was as if he was born with this character, and it made him feel extremely comfortable from top to bottom, from inside to outside. The god of slaughter Chen Hao was cold to his enemies, loyal to his brothers, and attentive to women. Although it was his true nature, no matter how he showed it, there was always a kind of estrangement in his heart. It was only when he was alone with one of the women, and it was only occasionally, that he occasionally felt the way he did now. That was undoubtedly when he was most moved and most natural. However, it was a pity that everything that he had experienced in the ancient chaos Great Thousand World and the intense pace of his cultivation had been pushing him to constantly improve. Such moments were simply too rare. Perhaps it was for this reason that after stepping out of the Star River Tunnel and disguising himself as a fatty, the estrangement between Chen Hao and Xian suddenly faded a lot. That was why he pretended to be her Daoist companion and flirted with her just now. Of course it's true. And more shameless. He dared to flirt with me. It's your father, Xian said, and as if her words had slipped, she mentioned Chen Hao's father again. Chen Hao suddenly jumped up, the fat on his face trembling. He rolled up his arms and sleeves, and looked like he was going to teach Xian a lesson. He threatened, "Try saying that again?" Xian sat calmly, and then burst out laughing. "What are you so excited about? Am I not telling the truth? You don't want to admit that you are younger than me. Could it be that you have been interested in me since long ago? Chapter 1167. The fat on Qin Hao's face trembled. His chubby hand was raised in the air, but the cross-legged Xi Xian was looking up at him, motionless. After several seconds, Qin Hao finally lowered his hand. He had discovered that Xi Xian, or perhaps a woman's ability to adapt, was extremely powerful. Once their psychological defenses were broken through, they would quickly adapt. Just like now, Xi Xian, who had just been teased by him and was blushing so red that it seemed as if blood would drip from her face, was now able to calmly checkmate him. Moreover, it seemed as if he was right. Chen Hao couldn't help but despise himself in his heart. If Xiao Feng was only a trigger, then when he first met the immortal legend of Xi Xian, he didn't seem to reject her at all. The immortal legend of the vast universe galaxy, the goddess in the hearts of countless cultivators. For a man with a strong desire to conquer her, she was indeed a great temptation. In addition to the fact that Xiao Feng was in the third life, from the very beginning, the contact between the two had revealed a certain taste. It seemed unstoppable and unavoidable, but in reality, whether Qin Hao admitted it or not, intentionally or not, his unintentional attitude towards Xi Xian had stimulated her to turn into a curious cat. This was Qin Hao's instinctive behavior. And Xi Xian's words of true nature had deeply touched Qin Hao. At the same time, an inexplicable panic surged in his heart. Just what kind of person was he? In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. Within the training room of the inn, Qin Hao and Xi Xian were both sitting cross-legged with their backs facing each other. They were both immersed in their cultivation and had forgotten the passage of time. After stepping into the great world of Xiandi, this was the first time they were cultivating. Both of them could feel the strength and clarity of the heavenly Tao laws in the great world of Xiandi. They were indeed much stronger than ancient chaos. Of course, the so-called strong wasn't the level of the supreme heaven Tao laws, and it was the strength of the fluctuations of the aura. If the heavenly Tao laws of the two great thousand worlds were compared to a kind of Tao mark, not to mention which of the two Tao marks was stronger, Qin Hao and Xi Xian's realms could not determine which was stronger. Just from the strength of the aura, the heavenly Tao laws of the great thousand world of ancient chaos were like Tao marks that were about to exhaust their energy. The aura that was released was very weak, but the Tao marks of the great world of Xiandi were clearly visible, and the aura was extremely strong. Even if they contained the same profound mysteries of Tao marks, there was no doubt that it would be much faster to comprehend them in the great world of Xiandi. The great world of Xiandi had gone through countless years and gathered the luck of countless top geniuses in the great thousand worlds. The foundation of the great world of Xiandi was undoubtedly terrifying. This also caused Qin Hao and Xi Xian to be immersed in their comprehension, so much so that they forgot to eat and sleep, and even forgot the passage of time. Ding dong, ding dong. But they had forgotten that it did not mean that the inn would let them stay in forever. When the deposit reached a month's time limit, the runic doorbell rang in the training room. Both of them were startled awake at the same time. A month has passed? Qin Hao opened his eyes and said in surprise. Xi Xian was also not satisfied. She looked at Qin Hao and said, "We have used up all the immortal crystal coins we paid. You should have said that we would stay in a worse room, but you insisted on staying in the best one, 1,600 immortal crystal coins a day. In a month's time, 50,000 immortal crystal coins had been used up, and only 2,000 immortal crystal coins were left. Do you think I lack money? Staying here is just to heal my injuries. Let's go to the Alliance Assessment Center." Qin Hao said as he pulled Xi Xian's hand and walked out. Real Martial City Alliance Assessment Center. According to Yilan, newcomers who had stepped into the great world of Xiandi would be able to obtain basic information about the great world of Xiandi. At the same time, this was also the assessment center for newcomers. Qin Hao and Xi Xian asked for directions in the inn and headed directly to the Alliance Assessment Center. Even so, the two of them had to fly for 2 hours before arriving. One could see how big Real Martial City was. So many people. When the two of them arrived at the entrance of the assessment center, Xian said in surprise. There were countless young cultivators. Most of them were from the Grand Mist Supremacy realm, while a small portion were from the Daoist Golden Wonderland and the Dao Severing True Immortals. Are they all here for the assessment? Xian asked through voice transmission. Is there a need to ask? The academies here are not like the sects in our world. Once you enter, you can leave and choose again at any time. Of course, the prerequisite is that you have the strength to pass the assessment of a stronger academy. Because of this, third-rate academies are third-rate academies. Even if true geniuses enter third-rate academies, they won't stay for long, and they won't be buried. Some academies naturally have to pay a price to retain their geniuses. Someone like me, I knew you wouldn't be so kind. Xian frowned and transmitted her voice. She had run away from home, so when she stepped into the galaxy tunnel, Yilan didn't tell her in detail about the great world of Xiandi. Up until now, basically all the information she knew was from Chen Hao. Then should I take the assessment of a first-rate academy directly? Chen Hao released Xian's hand. The two of them continued to walk quickly. Up to you, tell me the truth. Up to you. In any case, I won't image you. I'll just go to the same city as you when you take the assessment. At that time, wouldn't your woman hate me to death because I took a photo of you? My master will definitely scold me. Xian said seriously, but then her delicate body trembled. What are you doing? Don't be so agitated, we're Dao companions. Chen Hao actually put his arm around Xian's waist and continued walking. This kind of intimate behavior was nothing special between Dao companions. However, they were pretending to be Dao companions. Apart from Chen Hao's injury a month ago, walking hand in hand was the closest thing Xian and Chen Hao had done. Damn fatty, don't take advantage of me. Xian used one hand to grab Chen Hao's arm around her waist and walked hand in hand again. Her face was flushed red as she transmitted her voice to him. As the two of them talked, they arrived at a shop near the entrance. Just as Yilan said, the price was 100 times higher. They used 1,000 immortal crystal coins to buy a jade slip containing basic information about the great world of Xiandi. Chen Hao directly fused the jade slip into his mind. What a big change. A few minutes later, Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Xian with a trace of surprise on his face. Soon after, a light of memory emerged from between Chen Hao's brows and was transmitted to Xian. It was very different from the great world of Xiandi in Yilan's memory. Yilan had no memory of planet Hua, but it was one of the 3,000 main planets. Including the Great Transforming Star, the original main star had countless big and small cities. Now, each main star only had 10 big cities. Chapter 1168. The tens of thousands of planets with life under the jurisdiction of the main planet were cities as a whole. There was only one first-rate academy on each main planet, and it was located in the main city of one of the 10 major cities. On planet Dahua, it was in Dahua City. The highest level academy in True Martial City was only 100 second-rate academies and 1,000 third-rate academies. Obviously, the great world of Xiandi was now quite standardized. Jinxing Academy is ranked 12th, Qingming Academy is ranked 98th. Xian looked at Chen Hao strangely and said, not to mention herself, with the aura that Chen Hao had shown at that time, it was obvious that the guard captain's enthusiastic recommendation was definitely a scam. There were a total of 100 second-rate academies in True Martial City, and Qingming Academy was ranked 98th, which was almost at the bottom. It was afraid that even the top third-rate academies could not compare. Through the information obtained through the Jade Slip, the two of them had a preliminary understanding of each academy in True Martial City. They were all second-rate academies, but there was a huge difference in the cultivation conditions and treatment they received after becoming a disciple. The higher the ranking, the better the treatment. In the same academy, cultivators of different realms would receive different treatment. The higher the realm, the better the treatment, but this was overall. For cultivators of the same realm, the stronger the combat power, the better the treatment. The best treatment in the Daoist Golden Wonderland was better than the worst treatment in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. It was just not as good as the best treatment in the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm. These treatment were the most basic. As long as one became a disciple of the Academy, they would receive it. Most of the treatment was based on the Academy's contribution points. This had nothing to do with realm or combat power, only contribution points. How is it? Now do you believe that the guard captain was a scam? Chen Hao said with a smile. You're amazing, okay? It's not that I'm amazing, it's that you're too naive. I really don't know how you've lived for tens of millions of years. It's none of your business, damn fatty. Si Xian's face was slightly red, and she grabbed Chen Hao's fat waist with one hand and pinched it hard. Okay, let's go for the assessment first. As long as you can meet the selection criteria of a second-rate academy, we will choose a stronger second-rate academy to take the assessment. Chen Hao said. The two separated their hands. Si Xian glanced at Chen Hao and turned to leave. A new world, a new beginning. She had once been a peak existence in vast universe galaxy, but here she was nothing more than a legend. Although she hadn't fallen to the bottom, she still felt a tremendous pressure. If it weren't for her following Chen Hao here, she really wouldn't know where she would go. In a world filled with endless danger and cruelty, she felt like a sheep that had entered a pack of wolves. It was completely beyond her imagination. Otherwise, he wouldn't have met someone like Sima Duoli when he first came in. Therefore, at this moment, even though they were only separated into two teams of two different realms, Si Xian still felt a little reluctant. Shaking her head, her train of thought suddenly quickened. She was a character of the ancient Chaos Grand Thousand World. When did she become so weak? Chen Hao watched as Si Xian stood behind the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's peak late-stage cultivators. He smiled at her and quickly went to Daoist Jinxian's peak late-stage cultivators. Different realms had different entrances for the assessment. Several hours later, buzz, 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 huh? What's going on? It can't be measured? In the Grand Mist Supremacy Realm's peak late-stage assessment area, the two old men in charge of the assessment were surprised to see the screen constantly fluctuating, but after a full minute, there was still a strange phenomenon of a result. This was an age test. Under normal circumstances, it only took 10 seconds to determine the specific age of a cultivator. But now, a full minute had passed, and the age of the woman was still fluctuating. The number was changing irregularly. It was the first time they had encountered such a strange situation. Bathed in endless immortal light and runes, Si Xian was extremely nervous at this moment. After waiting for several hours, it was her turn to take the test. The first test was her age, which was undoubtedly her weakness. The cultivators who took the test before her were at most 1,000,000 years old, and most of them were around 500,000 years old. But she was more than 60 million years old. She couldn't remember the exact number. Why isn't it out yet? Si Xian was already nervous and mentally prepared to be despised. But others passed the test in a few seconds and entered the next level. She had been taking the test for a full minute and still hadn't completed it. Could it be that the tester is broken? How is that possible? All the testers were condensed by true immortal kings. Have you ever heard of a broken one? But what's going on? As long as it's a life, there's no reason why the specific number can't be measured. Let's try the next one? All right. The two old men conversed. At this moment, the number on the display screen suddenly froze. What? It can't be, right? The two old men looked at the display screen, a little dumbfounded. They were extremely shocked. 143,834 years old. How was this possible? When Si Xian came in, the two old men had a rough estimation. This woman was definitely much older than them. She was at least 50 million years old. But the result of the test turned out to be more than 140,000 years old. She was much younger than the peak late-stage supreme being of Hongmeng. There must be a problem. Let's try the next one. The two old men couldn't believe this result. They directly asked Si Xian to temporarily push the test out and change it to the next tester. The result came out in 3 seconds. but the result was similar to what they had sensed. There was no problem. Then they tested a few more testers, and they all met the requirements. After letting Xian enter the test again, it lasted for a full minute. Then, the display screen froze again. Finally, it stopped at 143,834 years old. Xianxia, right? What's your approximate age? The two testers called Xian in front of them and asked curiously. After verification, there was no problem with the tester. The problem could only be with Xian. About 50 million years old. Xian didn't see the result of her test and said nervously, "Have you swallowed some heaven-defying heaven and earth spirit object that can prolong your lifespan? The results of our test here show that you are only 140,000 years old." Ah! Xian was shocked. Almost instantly, she thought of the 9 lives mystic technique. Her third life, Xiaofeng, was only 140,000 years old. But Xian knew that this couldn't be exposed no matter what. The 9 lives mystic technique of the Shao clan's patriarch must have come from the great world of Xiandi. Moreover, it had a great relationship with Master. The reason why the great world of Xiandi became the forbidden land of ancient chaos cultivators was also related to Master. In a short moment, Xian regained her composure and said, "You received an inheritance and swallowed some strange fruits. It should be related to lifespan. As expected. No wonder your appearance doesn't show any signs of aging. The essence of your lifespan has been changed. This can be considered your talent. Let's calculate your age according to 140,000 years. Congratulations. Continue to test other items." After hearing Xian's words, one of the old men didn't doubt her and said directly. With a crisp sound, Xian's identity token was removed. Xian didn't dare to believe that this was real. 40,000? If her age was only 40,000, then how much would her test potential value increase? Go, don't worry. This is your secret, we shouldn't ask too much. It's just that your situation is too special, we will keep it a secret from you. Moreover, the final potential value result won't show the specific situation, only the final potential value. Thank you. Xian held the token and felt as if she was dreaming. She walked out of the 2 old men's monitoring room and entered the next test. She, who was the legend of not aging, actually became an extremely young existence in the same realm. Was this a joke? Until the end of the test, when she saw her name high up and the extremely eye-catching potential value, Xian was sure that she had hit the jackpot. Her age was calculated according to the 3rd life of the Daoist Golden Wonderland. Xian knew that her potential value was definitely unable to reflect her true situation. Very weak, because her 3rd life was only the Daoist Golden Wonderland. But Xian naturally wouldn't say anything. Fuck, this little fatty is too awesome, right? I really couldn't tell. He actually has the qualifications to take the test of a first-rate academy, too awesome. Just based on this potential value, in our true martial city, he can definitely choose any academy without taking the test. Yeah. I really didn't expect that just based on his aura, I wouldn't be able to sense it. While Xian was being stared at in shock by countless test takers, in the Daoist Golden Wonderland test area, Chen Hao had a humble smile on his face. He was also receiving the admiration of many young cultivators. Brother Li Yuan, hello. Can we get to know each other? Little girl, do you want to dual cultivate? I don't have any problems. The fee is very cheap, 10,000 immortal origin crystals per session. What are you talking about? Annoying. A female cultivator who wanted to befriend the genius Fatty directly blushed after hearing Chen Hao's shameless words. She turned around and left. Fuck, what a shameless Fatty. Many cultivators were speechless when they saw this scene. Not to mention that the girl who approached him had an original body. Even if she didn't, if he wanted to charge a fee, he should have said it secretly. He actually dared to say it in front of so many people. He was really too shameless. Is it really only 10,000? However, what no one knew was that after Chen Hao purposely made the girl leave, several female voices suddenly sounded in his mind. Fuck. The fatty finally realized that in this cruel, the great world of Xiandi, there were too many people who were shameless, immoral, and unscrupulous for the sake of cultivation. Fuck, I'm still a big fatty now. If I were to change into my handsome and elegant self, what would happen? Of course, those who dared to send him voice transmissions were naturally fierce women who had lost their original bodies. Chen Hao immediately covered his head and fled. The people of the Celestial Emperor were too enthusiastic, and he couldn't take it. You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.